Let's get peppy. Welcome to PEP 226. That's Pep or Planet Extra podcast. I'm Chaz Licciardello, a host of Planet America on ABC Australia, and this is an official ABC podcast. So say hi to the Ombudsman for me. On PEP, we cover all the stuff that's too nerdy for TV. If you're listening, you can find us on YouTube at the Pep with Chaz and Dr. Dave channel, and we are on Facebook at the Chaz from Planet America channel. You'll also find timestamps and show notes in our blurbs, and if you leave a comment under our current episode video, we are likely to see it. You can also tweet us or blue sky us at PEPCHASDRDAVE. That's at PepChaz Dr. Dave. If you want to chat to some fellow peppers, you can join our Discord server. It's on the screen now or in the blurb of the podcast. But if you want to contact me or Lockie the Lucky privately, why not email us? The address is producer@pepthepodcast.com. That address again is producer@pepthepodcast.com. And do not forget to subscribe for all that peppy goodness. It all helps. And we're recording this at 2:20 p.m. on Friday. Yes, we're recording this on the day it is going out. It's a day later than normal. And I am about, I'd say 12 hours behind in my reading, Dave. It's now US time. US time. Let's not forget that. 12:20 a.m. Friday in New York, if you care. Or for our LA peppers, it's 9:20 p.m. on Thursday. But now let's turn to the man who will never raise the stakes on inconsequential views. I talk about Dr. Pepper himself, Dr. David Smith.
Hi everyone, I'm Dr. David Smith. I'm an associate professor at the US Studies Centre at the University of Sydney, but I do not speak for either of those institutions. On PEP, I speak only for myself. The other bit of disclaimer that I want to do, especially for those of you watching the video, is that Chaz and I are not colour coordinating today.
Oh my God.
Now, you will have noticed over the last 2 weeks that Chaz and I have been in agreement over the idea that the redistricting arms race is a bad thing. We are not making some kind of collective bipartisan statement here about what we really need is a purple America. That is not what we are doing. Okay, I can't tell you what we actually are doing, but it's not that.
No, I'm just sexually frustrated. Dave, what are you grateful for?
I am grateful for, this one's another book recommendation.
Sure.
John Steinbeck's Cannery Row.
Is that his latest? Is it from the grave?
Yeah, that one was written in 1945. Look, I was texting with a friend of mine about John Steinbeck, and I hadn't read Cannery Row. And this friend of mine said, you have to read it. It's hilarious. And I was surprised by that because the only 2 Steinbeck books I had read were The Grapes of Wrath and Of Mice and Men, which, as magnificent as they are, they're pretty heavy going and not what you would associate with hilarity.
They're not The Naked Gun.
No. No, they're not. But Cannery Row, which is only about 150 pages long, genuinely hilarious.
Really?
So he was writing it towards the end of the war when apparently soldiers were telling him, because he was a best-selling novelist who was read by all kinds of people, they said, look, we're sick of all of the misery. Can you write something funny? So he managed to write this story, which even though it's about drunks living on the margins of society in Monterey, California during the Great Depression, all revolving around this equally drunk marine biologist who goes and collects octopus samples. It's incredibly funny. It's very hard to describe the plot. It would probably be best described as alcoholics attempt to organize a party at somebody else's house and repeatedly fail.
Okay.
It is amazing. And I mean, the genius of Steinbeck was he could get you to really feel your way into the lives of these people who were desperate on the edge of society. And in The Grapes of Wrath, he really wanted you to feel injustice. He really wanted you to feel the desperation that they felt and the way that they've been abandoned by America. In Cannery Row, what he wants you to understand is that these people still enjoy their lives and they're capable of this endless inventiveness, despite the fact that they're living from meal to meal in order to make the most out of their lives. And it really is an incredible novel, and I enjoyed it very much. So that is what I'm thankful for this week.
Would you say it is, because you recommended Evelyn Waugh
Yes.
a couple of weeks back, or maybe it was last week. Would you say that it is funnier than The Loved One?
Oh, that one is going to depend on your sense of humour.
Okay.
If your sense of humour is really misanthropic, The Loved One is the novel for you.
Yes.
If your sense of humour encompasses more of a love of humankind, then Cannery Row, I would say, is the book for you.
And is this going to go into the book list as well?
Yeah, let's put this one. Let's put this one in the book list.
For those who are interested in Dave's book selections, just have a look in the blurb underneath the videos, and you will see the book list. Dave's book list. It's quite long now.
Very long.
Lots for you to read. For my grateful, I want to talk about the Western Bulldogs again. They're my AFL team. The finals are upon us, as some of you will be aware. I absolutely love September. And for the Dogs, September starts 2 weeks early this week because we're not very good. We have a virtual elimination final this week against the Fremantle Dockers. And I am so excited and so nervous. But I'm also aware that literally every time I mention the Dogs on this podcast, they lose. Literally every time. I recall, for instance, Dave, you won't recall this because it wasn't you who was here. I did a podcast with Richie last year during the Dogs final against Hawthorn. Literally during it. We recorded it at night time.
Wow.
During the final. And I was doing score updates, even though the podcast was going to go out hours later.
Yeah.
I was doing live score updates and we got absolutely pantsed. So I wasn't going to mention the Dogs, but then I was thinking about a theory of mine, which I've bored Lockie with many times. He's about to hear it again. If you imagine life to be sailing on an ocean, this is an analogy I like to draw. My theory is that all the moments in calm seas that are lovely and relaxing and sunny, where you can kick back, sun on your face, you don't remember them. They're worthless. Like, they're fun at the time, but in 30 years' time, in 50 years' time, you're not going to remember them. May as well have never existed. What you're going to remember are the storms. You'll remember the storms. Now, in life, there are tumultuous moments that are positive and negative storms. Like, they're not just all negative like they are on the ocean. The analogy falls down now. Right?
Sure, the positive storm.
Yeah.
The positive seasickness.
But the enormous kind of exhilarating positive moments in life, they're great. But at the end of the day, you remember the exhilarating moments and the devastating moments equally in 50 years' time. And they both make life richer. I am of the view. Now, last year when the Dogs got pantsed during our pod, that was horrible. But I look back on it, on that night, with fondness. It was a moment of my life that registers on the seismic chart. I'm glad I lived it, even though at the time, I wasn't enjoying it very much. And so I usually advise people, generally speaking, go for the big swings, because even if it's terrible, that's still something that added to your life, and anything is better than calm seas. That's my little motto.
Okay.
Right? Now, this is why I was a long way around to say this is why I'm grateful for my love of sport. Because sport provides, if you love it, if you don't love it, it seems just stupid, a bunch of pituitary cases just running into each other. But if you do love it, it provides endless opportunities for storms, both positive and negative ones, right? Even if you support St Kilda and you experience nothing but tragedy and sorrow, it still enriches your life. St Kilda supporters they're full of life.
They're my AFL team.
Really?
Yes.
So you know what I'm talking about,
I
don't
know
you?
exactly what you're
Nothing
talking
but misery. Although this week they did have a good week. But St Kilda supporters are all the best characters on earth. And they really live their life. Really live their life. So you know what I'm talking about. It keeps you excited. It keeps you on edge. It keeps you alive. And so I'm grateful for sport. I'm grateful for September. Go Dogs.
And I never have to worry about sabotaging West Tigers finals chances because they're never anywhere near the finals, although there are some delusions being entertained this year that they could make the finals. It would involve them winning all of their next games, including against the number one team in the competition, while the Roosters have to lose all of their games including against the bottom team in the competition. So it's not very likely, but by their standards, they have had a good year.
That's a real double, the West Tigers and the St Kilda Saints. But yeah, look, you are the testimony. You're a testimonial to my motto about coming
Yeah,
series.
St Kilda won its only premiership, I think, 14 years before I was born.
66.
Yes, on the basis of a behind.
Okay, let's get to correspondence. Not going to do much of it because I got a lot to get through.
Yep.
You're used to me saying it. A lot of Rattus correspondence, Dave.
I have been thinking about that rat puppet so much.
So have I. So have all the peppers.
Hang on, we're in the ABC. Surely we can find Rattus and bring him into the PEP studio.
Was the Farrell's on the ABC?
Yeah.
Oh, it was
Like,
too. Yeah, you're right.
It's not like Rattus is doing anything now. I've seen the puppets from the New Adventures of Blinky Bill. I don't know if anyone remembers that from the 80s.
You would be surprised, Dave.
Yeah.
Like, not about Blinky Bill.
Yeah.
But, like, we tried to do a Mr. Squiggle sketch on Plain America this week.
Really?
And, nah.
Mr. Squiggle.
Mr. Squiggle's busy, apparently.
Mr. Squiggle's agent is like, you can't afford Mr. Squiggle.
Yeah. So okay, sorry, I interrupted your Blinky Bill thing. What about
The puppets there, somewhere on the other side of the building. I've seen them. They look a bit nightmarish these days. But
we've got some oversized play school puppets in the foyer as well.
Yes, yeah.
It's a real wonderland.
Yes.
So far, no Rattus in the foyer. Oh, look, I'll keep my eyes peeled for him, Dave.
Yeah.
Grim Jackal says, Chaz and Rattus really do have the same laugh. I think I just did the Raz laugh then. Andrew says, Chaz, I love this one. Chaz, I'm sorry to say, I grew up being compared to Rattus the rat. And now I'm an adult, I'm compared to you. so that's quite solid evidence that I am like Rattus the rat, I feel. Anyway, I love the Rattus thing. I still don't see it, but I love it. I wish I did see it. Daniel, I want to have sort of a general kind of, like a question for you, Dave.
Okay, yeah.
Right. Daniel says, so far you've been quite dismissive of the idea that Trump will run again in 2028. Given the recent obvious signs from Trump himself and many others in his administration, the unprecedented rulings by the Supreme Court in the last 6 months, the huge majority within the Republican Party, and their willingness to bend the upcoming elections in their favour, when will you start entertaining the idea that this could possibly happen? And what are the things that could actually prevent this, Dave?
I still don't think it's very likely.
So do I.
That he is going to run. And we have to remember that all of the things that Trump has been pushing against so far have been the kind of plasticine of American politics. Right? They have been things which were largely held up by norms and conventions rather than by actual laws. Where Trump has run into actual laws, he's found it a lot tougher going and in many cases has actually backed off fairly quickly.
Although the number of times I say this is lawless, this is against the law, this is against the law.
But Trump's brand of lawlessness is mainly operating in the zone of where law is not as clear as we thought it was. Where here, this is an area where law is actually very clear. Now, that's not to say he wouldn't try to ride roughshod over it as he has as he's done so many times. But this is a case where the law would be exceptionally clear and where a lot of the stuff that he's been able to do, it's been on these long timelines where court cases are going to take a very long time to work their way through. You're talking about stuff that's going to have really long-term implications. This would be a very, very quick one. Like, can he actually run in the 2028 election? This would come before the Supreme Court very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And so far, one of the things that Trump hasn't shown a willingness to do is to actually ignore the Supreme Court. He's been fine with ignoring other courts.
So you're assuming the Supreme Court wouldn't let him?
I am assuming that the Supreme Court wouldn't let him.
So am I. I don't think they go for this.
The other thing is that this, I suppose I'm not as sure about this. So far, the Republicans who have gone along with him, even though I think they're shooting themselves in the foot in a lot of cases long term, they at least see short-term gain in it. in this case, I think he would really be acting against the self-interests of a lot of Republicans by doing this, including a lot of the Republican allies that he has had so far. Eventually, other people's ambition and self-interest is going to kick in. At the moment, they think that that's assisted by riding as far along with Trump as they can, but I don't think that they're ready for Trump trying to turn himself into dictator for life.
I think Daniel would say, but what's keeping the Republicans in check is not ambition, it's fear. It's intimidation.
Yes.
It's intimidation of the Trump stormtroopers. And
yeah,
if we get to that in 2 years' time, the stormtroopers will be that much angrier and that much louder.
Yes. But it's also time to think about what can the stormtroopers actually do. Right. A lot of the time at the moment, what they are caving into is social media pressure. And basically primary threats. Even though I'm sure there are very real threats of violence being directed against people and that is affecting people's behaviour, I don't think that's the main thing. I think they actually at the moment, it's the way that their political incentives are lined up. And I don't see that extending to supporting Trump for a third term. There are some other things that we need to keep in mind, okay? And you're saying there's constant indications from Trump. On the actual third term issue, one of the things that I'm thinking of is Trump's trying very hard, and we'll talk about this today, to establish himself now as the greatest deal maker and the greatest peacemaker that the world has ever seen. And is angling for the Nobel Prize. The way that Trump is acting at the moment, especially since, look at the way that court cases have been going over the last 2 years, especially the most recent one was from yesterday or today that cleared his $500 million fine for fraud. Trump knows now when he leaves office, there won't be any consequences for anything that he's done. Nothing. It is but the ability to do it. There is a theoretical possibility that the January 6th charges could be resurrected, but I
statute of limitations.
Find it very hard to see that happening. Okay, the situation he's in now, very different from the situation that he was in 2020. Okay, where 2020 he knew if he was not president when he walked out of the Oval Office, he was going to be facing legal jeopardy, and he did. That legal jeopardy, as far as I can see, is gone. Okay, so I think that was one of the major incentives that he might have had for wanting to stay on. History shows that's a very powerful incentive for leaders to stay on. Now, he is going to be able to leave office with no legal jeopardy. He's going to be able to keep all of the corrupt gains that he got from when he was in office. And I think that the possibility that he sees now is he could really burnish his reputation and leave as the figure of greatness that he wants to be remembered as.
And he could still be the kingmaker of Republicans.
Yeah.
He could have all the power and none of the responsibility.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is, and if you don't believe me, just look at what's happened in the past. Figures like Huey Long, for instance, who was out of Louisiana and was still controlling the place.
Yes.
Like there is a history of this.
Yeah. And also in his second term, just look at all of the public genuflection that he is enjoying from so many people, both inside and outside the US. He was getting a bit of that in his first term, but mainly from people within his own circle who just wanted to suck up to him. Let me put it bluntly, from people he didn't respect. Okay, I think this was one of the major things that was feeding Trump's pathologies in his first term. He was getting all of this respect from people he didn't respect. Now he's actually getting genuflections from people he might respect, right, from other world leaders.
Yeah.
I think he is now finally getting some semblance of the recognition that he feels he deserves. Now, of course, Mary Trump, his niece, wrote it's her autobiography and a biography of Trump called Never Enough.
Too much and never enough.
Yeah, too much and never enough, which basically says he can never be satisfied. There might be something to that. But I think in his first term, both the legal jeopardy he was facing when he left office and the feeling that he'd just never been properly respected were two factors that were really driving him very hard towards the 2024 election. I just don't think that he's being driven as hard towards the 2028 election.
A couple of things I'd add on that. I think that people underestimate how much he wants to be liked.
Yes.
I think that is part of his pathology as well. It seems unlikely given how aggressive he is against his opponents. But when he's being aggressive against his opponents, it's his way of sucking up to his supporters.
Yes.
Like, I think he genuinely wants to be liked. And I think acting like a genuine full-on dictator, he gets so much hatred out of that.
Yeah.
And I don't think he wants that.
No.
I think he wants to be admired and treated like the world's greatest hero.
Yeah.
I think also if he had this in mind, he'd be warming them up now. Like he starts long in advance when he wants to do this kind of stuff. I mean, he's already talking about messing with the elections. Like how they just but like the third term thing, he's not warm. In fact, if anything, he's going the opposite direction.
Yeah.
He was being a bit coy about third term jokes.
Yes.
A year or two ago, and now he's just going, well, I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah.
He's been quite blunt about it. But the other thing I would say is to your second part, Daniel, about what are the things we could actually prevent this. If Trump and the Supreme Court won't respect such a bleedingly clear provision in the Constitution, nothing can stop it. Like I mean, what good would be passing another law?
Yeah.
Like that's not as clear and not as overwhelming as a provision of the Constitution that's like 3 lines long and just absolutely just very clear. So, if we're wrong, it's going to happen, I guess.
Yeah.
I would say the only thing, let's say we are wrong, the only thing I think that would stop him wouldn't be legal means. The legal means are there already. It would be that he's not popular enough.
Yeah.
That he knows he's going to lose.
Yes.
Because also he'd need to have real popularity to even go for it because he knows he's going to lose a bit of popularity because he's going for a third term. So I would say, Daniel, if you think that we're wrong and you think that we're being a bit blasé about it, and I can understand why you'd think that because I am pretty blasé about it. But I'd say that you need to think about ways that he could be less popular. Like it'd probably start with Democrats winning the midterms.
Yeah.
And it'll probably move from there. And and I'd say that would be the only thing. But I don't think he's going to go for it. Anyway, just want to read out because we get a lot of people asking about this and also asking, is it fascism? We get a lot of people asking, is it fascism? So I won't do it this week.
Okay.
One of the upcoming weeks I'll ask you
Sure.
again. I'll just keep on asking you.
Yeah, and I will probably keep giving very similar answers.
I'm sure you will. Before we move on, we experimented with the PEP's Clip channel. You would have noticed I didn't actually mention the PEP's Clip channel in the blurb at the top. That's because we just don't think it's working. So we're going to probably experiment with putting some of the clips up on the main channel. We won't spam you. We asked you about this a few months back, and you said, please don't spam us. And, okay, we won't spam you, but we might put a few clips up. I just want to. And we'll see how we go from there. We're going to mess around with it a little bit. We're going to change the landing page video and stuff. Just little tweaks. Let's get into the actual content, shall we? Let's start with some updates, as always. Now, at the end of last PEP, I talked about the NVIDIA, not NVIDIA. Thank you, Correspondent 0G, for setting me straight. NVIDIA, the NVIDIA situation, which is like the state capitalism that is spreading around America. And I'd like to give a bit of an update on that. And that also gives you the opportunity to weigh in if you have anything to say.
Okay, yes.
For those who don't recall, I was saying that Trump was aping Chinese-style state capitalism by involving the government in private sector moves. First, about 6 months ago now, like 3 months ago, he only greenlit the US steel takeover by Nippon Steel if America was given some board control of a new company. That was an unusual thing for him to do. Then he demanded $1.5 trillion of investment capital last month to be controlled by him as a condition for some of his trade deals. That was unusual.
Yes.
Then MP Materials, which operates the only mine for rare earth minerals in America, accepted a $400 million investment from the Pentagon, making the Pentagon the company's largest shareholder. It's also unusual.
Yes.
Then there was this example I talked about last week where first the Biden administration, then the Trump administration had placed a security hold on some of the silicon chips to stop them being sold to China.
Yep.
The hope was to keep America ahead of China in the AI race. but the Trump administration had elected to allow those chips, primarily by the company NVIDIA, to be sold to China for a slice of the proceeds, 10% of the sales. Now, this was not the top chip on the market, but still was a pretty good chip, a good enough chip for American security apparatus to be concerned about the sale. This was all despite the Bureau of Industry and Security being seemingly forbidden by statute and the Constitution from charging a fee in consideration for an export license. Now, I've since learnt about a potential legal loophole, which I'll tell you about in a second. But Dave, do you have anything to say about this topic before we move on to the loophole?
I would say that this way of getting the US government involved is a little bit new, especially the whole I want to cut of it as the approach. But the US government getting heavily involved in the economy for national security purposes is not new at all. It was US government funding that largely created Silicon Valley. In a very good book by Linda Weiss called America, Inc., which I think must be about 10 years old now, she describes how keeping the United States technologically ahead of the Soviet Union and then ahead of other rivals was seen as such an important aim that the United States government was prepared to throw a lot of money at private companies in order to do research for things that would have commercial applications for those companies first and then might have national security benefits later on. So the US government was subsidizing a huge number of tech businesses with uncertain results at the end, really just to keep the technological advantage going. And when you consider that the standard defense contract in the US was what's known as a cost-plus contract, right? That is basically the US government assumed all of the risk. And the private companies got to keep the profit. The way that all of this worked was it was state intervention, but it was state intervention capitalist style.
Yep.
It was state intervention in a way that would really help these companies to flourish. It would enable these companies to do technological research at basically no risk to themselves and a lot of commercial benefit, all with the aim of just keeping the US ahead of the Soviet Union. And this is really how Silicon Valley was born. As I say, it's a little bit different how he's doing it now. But certainly the idea of American state intervention in the economy for national security purposes is not a new one.
That's a fair point to make. I'd say what you're describing is public-private partnerships, which is different to taking over the board. but yeah, that's a fair point. As far as the loopholes go, how it's legal to do the NVIDIA export tax, even though it appears to contradict a law and a constitutional provision.
Yep.
As Inconsequentialorium noted, is a correspondent. Hey! NVIDIA designs the chips, but Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, TSMC, manufactures the majority of NVIDIA's chips, including their GPUs and AI chips.
Yep.
While NVIDIA is a fabless company, meaning they design the chips but outsource the manufacturing. TSMC is their primary production partner. He wasn't making that point as a legal point. He was just making it, just telling it, just informing us of that. But that could be legally critical because NVIDIA aren't manufacturing the chips in America. Well, they do manufacture some chips, but not these chips in America. These ones are made in Taiwan, or in fact, some of them are made in China. If they aren't exporting the product from America, but from Taiwan, then are they subject to export tax bans?
Good question.
It is a good question. We might find out. Also, Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution stops Congress from imposing an export tax.
Right.
But this is the president, not Congress. That's pretty weak, but it might be an argument they use in court as well. We'll find out.
This reminds me as well, people sometimes ask me, because of Taiwan's importance in manufacturing chips, sometimes people ask, so to what extent is potential US-China conflict over Taiwan actually about the control of this technology? I mean, it's a complicated question. My answer would be for China, that's not what it is about. Taiwan has a lot more significance than that for China. But
Well, they were after Taiwan before Silky Chips.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But at a time when the American commitment to Taiwan could potentially be in question, right? Because I've said before, during Joe Biden's presidency, there was a 100% chance that if China invaded Taiwan, the US would fight against it. That is now clearly not 100%. Don't know what percentage it is, but it's not 100%. But you could definitely argue that the chip factor would be one of the things that could help maintain an American commitment to Taiwan. I'm sure Taiwan hopes that is the case. Anyway, yes.
Fair enough. I need to correct myself immediately.
I
just realised I said there. We'll see about this, about if this legally works. We won't see. We'll never see because this is never going to court. This is the major reason it's inverted commas legal because the court, it doesn't become illegal until the court says it's illegal and the court's never going to say it's illegal.
It's Schrodinger's court case.
It is Schrodinger's court case because he's unsuable in this situation. What do I mean by that? Remember, to sue someone, you need to have standing. What standing means is that you need to be personally damaged by the actions of the defendant.
Right.
Otherwise, you can't sue them. Who's Trump hurting by taxing NVIDIA? He's hurting NVIDIA. They're not going to sue him for allowing them to export chips to China, are they?
Probably not.
He's hurting Congress by removing their taxation powers from them.
Yep.
Can you see this Congress suing Donald Trump?
Probably not.
Unlikely. Who else is he hurting? Nobody. No one else can sue. So I feel like there's a classic example where the states should be allowed standing for constitutional challenges because they got direct stake in the Constitution not being a joke. But that's not the way it works at the moment in America. So there is literally no way that this can possibly be taken to court until maybe the Democrats win midterms. They might, but they're not going to take this to court.
Could some other customer, some American customer of NVIDIA claim this is going to make NVIDIA's chips more expensive for us, therefore we're being hurt?
They can try.
Therefore we can sue. But then again, can you see another major American corporation trying to sue Trump?
Unlikely.
I can't. Given the most consequential lawsuit being brought against Trump by an American business is by a small-time winemaker.
Yeah, that's right. Yes,
Yeah.
that was one of the tariffs here,
Yes.
and that could be the one. I keep on saying that could be the one.
Yes.
There's another example though, Dave.
What's that?
Intel. This is a fifth example of state capitalism. A few weeks back, Tom Cotton wrote a letter to the Intel board saying that their CEO, Lip-Bu Tan, was too close to China.
Oh, I remember this.
And then Trump called for Tan to be sacked. He tweeted out, "The CEO of Intel is highly conflicted and must resign immediately. There is no other solution to this problem. Thank you for your attention to this problem." Drink. Oh, half a drink. Half a drink. Okay, so Tan, remember what he said there? There is no other solution to this problem other than him resigning. Tan found another solution. He visited the White House to meet the president, and then Trump suddenly posted, "The meeting was a very interesting one. His success and rise is an amazing story. Mr. Tan and my cabinet members are going to spend time together and bring suggestions to me during the next week." Suggestions, you say?
What gold spray-painted thing did he give Trump?
He gave him a gold spray-painted 10% stake in Intel is what he gave him. That's what we hear. We hear Trump wants a 10% stake in Intel.
Wow.
How can they justify that?
I suppose what I was describing earlier in terms of earlier forms of state capitalism.
Yeah.
This is
A little different?
That's what the political economist James Kurth called mutant Keynesianism.
Yeah.
This, I think, is like super mutated Keynesianism.
Yeah. I don't think Keynes would appreciate you comparing his theories to this. I think this is
this is definitely the mutation that began in the sewers somewhere.
This is more Captain Hookism than Keynesian, I feel. It was kind of just piracy. Okay, so this is their justification. Intel received a bunch of money from the CHIPS Act, right? In fact, it received more grants than anyone else. $8.5 billion in grants, $11 billion loan, $19.5 billion of cash from the government.
Yeah.
That's been legislated, okay?
Mm-hmm.
They've received some of the money, not all of the money.
Oh, what a surprise.
And Trump's saying, if you want all that money and you want to keep your CEO, 10%. And, as Howard Lutnick put it, we're just converting what was a grant under Biden into equity for the Trump administration, for the American people. Now, to be clear, this isn't just a Trump thing. Back when the CHIPS Act was being debated, Bernie Sanders hated it because he said it was essentially a bribe for big companies that didn't need it. Mm-hmm. And he said the subsidies should come with conditions, like companies must agree to issue warrants or equity stakes to the federal government.
Yeah.
Now, the difference between Bernie Sanders and what Trump did, because you go, well, hang on, Bernie's doing the same thing as Trump. No. Bernie was saying, if you want a massive handout, here's what you can give me for it. What Trump is saying, here is some illegal action which I am offering you in return for a slice. That's very different.
That is very different. Yes.
Anyway.
Yes.
Anyway, Trump's
That's the difference between like the small town mayor and the mob boss.
Yeah.
Yes.
That is exactly the difference. And so Trump is basically doing the socialism thing, but without congressional authorization. That is what he is doing. And he's blackmailing a company with the money that Congress has already directly handed to them. Like it's very owed to them now. So anyway, once again, Trump's taking over Congress's role completely unconstitutionally. Who's going to stop him? Congress? No. Intel? No. It's unstoppable. This is so frustrating. But that's the situation. Got any thoughts on any of this, Dave?
He's helped by the fact that nobody likes big corporations.
He is definitely helped by that.
Yes.
One more example. There's so much state capitalism going around now. It's really accelerating. The Trump administration has released a company scorecard, Dave. Have you heard about this?
No, I haven't.
This is definitely not Keynesian under any definition of the word. It ranks 553 companies and trade associations on how well they've advanced the president's agenda and the big, beautiful bill.
Jesus.
They are judged according to their social media posts, press releases, video testimonials, ads, White House event attendances, and other efforts.
Wow.
Just to remind you, these are private companies who apparently now have an obligation to promote Trump initiatives. They are being ranked. They're not giving a percentage yet. They're being ranked either strong, moderate, or low.
Okay. Have we got any rankings? Bearing in mind we're not advertising anybody here.
We know some strong partners.
Okay.
Uber, DoorDash, United, Delta, AT&T, and Cisco, according to Axios, are some of the strong rated companies.
Right.
I don't know what they did exactly. I mean, it's not like they're advertising this, but, it's public. The companies know about it.
Yes.
And the data, they say, I can't believe this. It's so blatant. They say the data has been circulated amongst White House senior staff, so they're aware of company scores when dealing with that company or when making decisions involving that company. They're just saying that flat out. That's just blackmail.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's what we know, and we know they're going to keep updating the list. And officials said this on the record. If groups/companies want to start advocating more now for the tax bill or additional administration priorities, we'll take that into account in our grading. They said that publicly to a newspaper. So essentially, we're talking a Chinese-style social credit system for business. But the only behavior that gets you credit is propaganda for the Trump administration.
So they're just thinking, I'm really disturbed by the first couple, Uber and DoorDash.
Yeah. You think about these companies.
Yeah, because, DoorDash in particular.
Yeah.
Right, there's been a lot of reporting in the last day about delivery riders getting picked up by ICE on the streets of DC and taken straight to detention facilities.
I have seen that.
So is DoorDash applauding this? Thank you, sir, for abducting another one of our delivery riders.
Maybe the DoorDash delivery riders, as they're being taken into the clink, are proclaiming the wonder of the funding that is allowing this to happen. I don't know. I don't even think this is illegal. I mean, maybe it is. I can't think of a law that they're breaking. But it's so incredibly unethical. And it's so scary. If you want to know why I have libertarian tendencies, it's because of fears about this kind of shit. That's why. I was expecting, though, the leveraging of government power to be a little more subtle than this. But that's where we're at, Dave. Do you have any comments on any of this?
No.
All right, let's go to the tariffs.
Okay.
We did want to do an update on tariffs. We did say this weeks back. We've received some good correspondence about this. I want to read this out. I want your view on this correspondence. Sorry.
Yep.
I can't believe I haven't played this yet. For the third time. This is from Keith.
Yes.
I've got a problem with you. It does go on. I've got a problem with you repeatedly characterizing the tariffs as being a tax on the American people and as simply punishing the people in whichever country imposes the tariff. My company exports software to the US, which is a service and not a good, so we're unaffected by tariffs. But if, for example, a 50% tariff were imposed on our software, we would probably lower our price and lose profit so that we would compete with our clients' alternatives. Even if there were no US makers of our type of software, we might still lower the price because one of the clients' alternatives is to stop using that type of software altogether or to develop it themselves. If we reduce the price, then we're effectively paying some of Trump's tariffs. Or if our clients can discontinue our service, then no tax is paid and we'd lose that even more. In either of those situations, the tariffs are not simply a tax on the American people. I thought it was important to read it out for the other side of the coin, but I'd like to know your view on it. I've got a view as well, but you can go first.
Yeah, look, very good points. And I think one of the reasons why the tariffs haven't had the kind of immediate impact on prices that people might have expected is because companies are doing exactly what Daniel has said. They're eating some of the cost. Now, one of the reasons, though, why they're eating some of the cost at the moment is because of the uncertainty over the tariffs. They don't want to lose market share while there's still a possibility that the tariffs might not happen at all. Now that the tariffs seem to be a little bit more legally in place, although by no means legally unassailable, but they seem to be a little bit more in place, I think you will start seeing price increases. He's right to say a tariff isn't necessarily just going to be the whole cost of the tariff is just lumped on the American people. Certainly importers and exporters to some extent as well might eat some of the cost. I've certainly heard stories anecdotally about Americans going to their Chinese business partners and asking, look, would you be prepared to at least split the cost of the tariff? In most cases, I heard the answer was no, but in a couple of cases, it was yes.
In the past, the Chinese ate about a third of the tariff.
Yeah. So, and this is why when people talk about, when agencies estimate what is the price increase going to be, even though the overall increase in tariffs is going to be about 18% or something like that.
That's the effective tariff.
Yeah. But whereas people are estimating the price increase is 1.5%, right? Yeah. So it's not, you're absolutely right. It's not a direct tax.
Sorry, just to be very clear.
Yes.
The 1.5% price rise is across all products.
All products,
18% tariff rate is just for those imports.
Yes.
Those imports. Yeah.
But looking at what happens when tariffs actually get more settled, what calculations are companies making then? Especially if tariffs are deployed in this absolutely blanket way that the Trump administration is deploying them now. It's everyone is facing the same tariffs. Under those circumstances, you've got far less incentive to actually eat the cost of the tariffs, right? Everyone is going to put prices up. And sure, the domestically produced product isn't going to suffer the same tariff, but it also means the domestic producers, they've got no incentive to keep their prices competitive. They can raise their prices as close to just below the imported price as possible and reap the margin.
That's what they often do.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I would say in the long term, it is going to become more and more of a direct tax on the American consumer, even if it's not at the moment.
Yeah, okay. I added a few extra things to that for you, Keith. I'm really glad that you wrote to us because I think it's a good thing to talk about.
Yeah.
I'd say a few things. First of all, obviously it's an easier thing to do when you're a service and each extra sale costs you almost nothing. Whereas a good, your costs went to the development of the software, didn't they, Keith? They didn't. They're not in selling an extra version, an extra marginal copy of your software. When you're selling goods, the costs of each extra sale, that they're massive. Like it's all the production inputs, and so when you're talking about first world countries, not so much Vietnam maybe, but when you're talking about your European type countries, the price of goods would largely be the cost of producing the good plus a little markup. Like there's a pretty big markup in Vietnam and China, but which is why China eats more of the tariffs. But yeah, say a European product, there won't be much markup. There's only so much of the tariff you can eat before there's no point even selling it. It's obviously complicated when there are so many products and goods, etc. Sure, but there is good evidence that the foreign countries aren't eating their tariffs. Let's look at the numbers because economists they take data on this shit. Evidence like, for instance, the new BLS commissioner who we talked about last week, EJ Anthony. He won't understand this. He should. I know he's a pepper. EJ, pay attention because you screwed this up on Twitter. Okay, you bloody idiot who's now the head of statistics, or about to be. The import price index, what Lockie's showing you is a tweet from moron EJ Anthony showing he doesn't understand how the import price index works. This measures the price of imports before tariffs. You can see in the tweet, EJ Anthony was citing the fact that the import price index was 0 lately to suggest the tariffs weren't affecting prices. But what that actually means is that the countries selling the products are not changing the prices they sell the products for. If they were eating the tariffs, they would be hugely negative. But they're not eating the tariffs. They're only just only eating the tariffs a little bit. So they're just slightly negative.
Just
and that's
nibbling on the tariffs.
Yeah, exactly. Just reducing the prices just a little bit. But if they were properly eating the tariffs, they'd be reducing the prices a lot to account for the tariffs being placed on later on. Does that make sense?
That makes absolute sense.
Not to EJ Anthony, it doesn't. But anyway, as you can see, Keith, it is 0. So if you understand this chart better than the likely new head of the BLS, you'll see most exporting countries are not eating their tariffs. Other economics types have put a number on this as well. Goldman Sachs says that foreigners have absorbed about 14% of the tariff burden this time round. That's more than the 5% that they absorbed in Trump's first term. Still not much. Still 14%. And they're not my numbers, they're Goldman Sachs' numbers. Having said that, even though I don't think it's happening a lot, it's still fair enough to ask for more nuance from us. Keith, you can always have more nuance, hence me reading out your comment. Thank you very much for it.
Yes, thank you. Now,
the current state of tariffs, there are different economics groups have got different numbers, but according to, you cited the Yale Budget Lab before, 18.6% effective tariff rate at the moment. That's the highest since 1933. After consumption shifts around, the average tariff rate would be about 17.7% according to them, highest since 1934. The price level up 1.8% is their number in the short run, costing the average household $2,400 for the year. Tax Foundation has different numbers. They say the average effective tariff rate is 19.5%. After consumption shifts around, they say 11.7%. They say it will make a big difference to consumption. They say it will reduce the market income by 1.5%, which they say the average household will cost them $1,300. There is an important proviso here. There are more exceptions to tariffs than you might think. According to Barclays, in June 2025, 52% of all imports entering the US were still duty-free. 52% June. That share would be smaller now. Also, some businesses are still cruising on the early splurge of imports they undertook to beat the tariffs a few months back. As far as popularity, they're still very unpopular. They're basically the least popular thing Trump is doing apart from Epstein. 61% oppose the tariffs, according to Pew, 38% support. A few changes in some of the tariffs. Computer chips. Trump says we're going to be putting a tariff of approximately 100% on chips and semiconductors. That announcement came after Tim Cook gave him a lovely little present in the Oval Office. Did you see that?
I saw this one.
How much do you reckon that's worth, Dave? That it's a transparent disc with President Donald J. Trump Apple American Manufacturing Program written on it.
I think I read that it was worth $500,000.
I'll tell you what it's worth. It's worth 100% tariff. That's what it's worth because he's made an exception for Apple after receiving that pissy disc.
On a gold base, though.
Yeah, he would have liked that. Apple stock climbed 5% the day after and 3% again the day after that. Well worth it. Well done, Tim. Well played, Tim Cook.
By the way, I'm not sure that I actually saw that was worth $500,000. that is just in my head.
I got no idea.
Because that really doesn't look like it's worth $500,000.
It doesn't to me either, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
But,
so
sure
feel free to fact check me on. I think that's worth less than our egg timer.
It's certainly, sentimentally, it's definitely worth less, I'll tell you that. Trump extended the US-China tariff truce another 90 days.
What a surprise.
To November 10. Pretty obvious China's got his measure, I would have thought.
Yep.
So much for the braggadocio. When a country takes him on, he backs down. That is if he can't bully them. Did you hear about the gold tariffs?
No, I did not hear about the gold tariffs.
Strange tweet. A statement from Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America. Gold will not be tariffed. That was the entire tweet.
Well,
were the rumors abound? I don't know. I'm assuming it's related in some way to the fact that every second ad on Fox News is about buying gold.
I was going to say, yeah, that's definitely one for the base. And well, so that'll be good news for South Africa.
Oh yeah,
and for Australia as well.
Actually, we sell gold. I didn't know. How about that?
Yeah, we sell gold.
Oh, that's great news.
So does South Africa.
Great news. Great news for us all.
Yes.
Steel tariff news. Recall, steel tariffs are the only tariffs that Trump has imposed that are absolutely 100% legal. No doubt.
Yes.
Legal. He appears to be beefing them up, probably because he knows they're the only ones that are guaranteed. He's added a bunch more products to the steel and aluminium tariffs. You heard about this?
No, I haven't.
About 407 new items were just added.
Yeah.
That contain steel or aluminium at all, or are transported in steel or aluminium containers.
Yep.
So, for instance, motorcycles and cutlery and fire extinguishers and strollers and furniture, you go, okay, maybe. Mm-hmm. But then also petrol and milk.
What?
And chemicals.
What?
And plastics.
What?
They're all transported in steel and aluminium containers.
Okay.
One logistics company said, basically, if it's shiny, metallic, or remotely related to steel and aluminium, it's on the list. Now, to be fair, the milk itself is not going to be tariffed. It would be just the component that is steel. So they'll assess the value of the container.
Okay.
And they'll tariff that, right? But what that means is a very complicated calculation has to be made for every single product.
Yes.
Making the entire system opaque, inefficient, confusing, open to lobbying.
Yes.
All the reasons that I hate tariffs. Also, when they added the products on the list, they didn't even exclude products that were already in transit.
Mm-hmm.
So when they get into port, all of a sudden the people are going to be scrambling around trying to assess what is steel or what looks like steel or what is just fake steel. It's just classic chaotic decision making, right?
Yes.
Even worse, and this is so shoddy, they've created a process now where 3 times a year there's going to be a window for businesses to dob in their competitors. So that their goods can be tariffed and added to the list.
Yeah.
There's already been a 600% increase this year in registered tariff lobbyists.
Jesus.
Expect that number to explode. Another correspondence on
Anyway, bottom line, your tinfoil hat is just about to get a lot more expensive.
Yes. From S. Mitchell, putting technical economist definitions aside, do the Trump tariffs equate to an effective federal consumption tax, albeit placed only on the imported goods? What do you reckon?
That was how Kamala Harris presented it. She said, this is basically a sales tax.
I think only 11% of the goods are imports. It's not. It's a pretty...
Yeah, not really. And also because of even though we keep referring to these as blanket, as Chaz pointed out, there's a surprising number of examples. So it's very unevenly enforced or distributed, whereas a genuine consumption tax is pretty much uniform. Although, for people who either aren't Australian or weren't alive in 1998, I won't subject you to the immense absurdity of the debates in Australia about what was going to be GST exempt and what wasn't. Just Google roast chicken GST.
Birthday cake.
Yeah, birthday cake.
Yeah.
to learn about the scintillating debates that were taking place in Australia at that point.
Yeah, especially 993 or less than 998. Like when John Hewson first tried to bring in a GST. And he got nailed for it.
Yeah.
And then the second iteration, they didn't get nailed quite as hard.
Yeah.
I guess it is, in a way, but it'd be the least efficient consumption tax of all time. Like, there's so many exceptions.
Yeah.
So I think it barely counts. But yeah, I understand the way you're thinking. I don't think it's wrong, but it's just so inefficient and confusing and just rubbish. Anyway, one more thought about tariffs before we get into Putin, Zelensky stuff, which is obviously the biggest story this week. Dave's going to be spearheading that one. The legal strategy to keep tariffs from being ruled illegal.
Yep.
Because like I keep saying, that's the case which I'm really interested in because I think it's a pretty obvious case, and the courts so far have just slammed them. They're up to the appeals court now. They could return a verdict any week. In fact, it could be tomorrow.
It could be.
Like they
by the time you hear this, maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Scott Bessent was really blatant about their strategy recently. Let's just play this and just see what his legal strategy is.
If the tariff court rules against us, it will immediately be enjoined, so the tariffs will likely continue. Then it will go to the Supreme Court in October. Then we would expect a ruling in January. But I tell you, Larry, the amount of money that's coming in here, I think the more deals we've done, the more money coming in, it gets harder and harder for SCOTUS to rule against this.
So waste as much time as possible and hope that Trump raises so much money from the tariffs that the Supreme Court is scared to rule them as illegal. Basically bully the Supreme Court. That's their tactic. It is a brazenly lawless, yet possibly effective tactic. Now, you might just think that's just Bessent vamping. But no, they've already tried the beginnings of this on the appeals court. Because rather than making a legal argument to the appeals court, they just catastrophized as hard as they could to try and intimidate them. Have you seen the letter that John Sauer, Solicitor General, sent the court?
I have not.
I'm going to read you a few paragraphs because they are extraordinary paragraphs.
Okay.
Suddenly, revoking the president's tariff authority under AEPA would have catastrophic consequences for our national security, foreign policy, and economy. The president believes our country would not be able to pay back the trillions of dollars that other countries have already committed to pay, which could lead to financial ruin. Other tariff authorities that the president could potentially use are short-term, not nearly as powerful, and would render America captive to the abuses that it has endured for far more aggressive countries. There is no substitute for the tariffs and deals that President Trump has made. 1 year ago, the United States was a dead country, and now, because of the trillions of dollars being paid by countries that have so badly abused us, America is a strong, financially viable, and respected country again. If the United States were forced to pay back the trillions of dollars committed to us, America could go from strength to failure the moment such an incorrect decision took effect. These deals for trillions of dollars have been reached, and other countries have committed to pay massive sums of money. If the United States were forced to unwind these historic agreements, the president believes a forced dissolution of the agreements could lead to a 1929 style result. In such a scenario, people would be forced from their homes. Millions of jobs would be eliminated. Hard-working Americans would lose their savings, and even Social Security and Medicare could be threatened. In short, the economic consequences would be ruinous instead of unprecedented success. Are you convinced by that argument?
I am not convinced by that argument.
It's got nothing to do with the law at all. It's
No.
just 100% intimidation and stupid intimidation.
I mean, but it has this characteristic that you often see in these Trump fantasies, whereby the achievement is so incredibly amazing. It's the greatest thing ever achieved. And yet at the same time, it's so fragile that it could be immediately undone. Now, the reality is America wouldn't have to pay back trillions of dollars because other countries are never going to pay those trillions of dollars.
That's right.
These are completely fictional agreements that have been worked out in order to burnish Trump's ego to facilitate far, far smaller deals.
And remember, sorry, Keith, It's the Americans paying it.
It is Americans paying it. And no, the United States was not dead in 2024.
They weren't.
No, it has not suddenly become a world historic powerhouse now. I do not believe. I don't find it plausible, and I can't believe that a judge is going to find it plausible. I think a judge's response to that would be, sir, this is a courthouse.
Yes. Oh, by the way, if you're wondering, are they actually raising trillions of dollars? No. They raised $28 billion in tariffs in July compared to the $8 billion per month that they were collecting beforehand. So it's tens of billions of dollars.
I assume that when he's talking about the trillions of dollars in commitments, he's talking about the trade deals that have been inked with the European Union and
you're talking
Japan.
about the slush fund for the slush investment fund for Trump. He's never going to see $1 of.
Yes.
Sorry, Trump.
Yeah, I think that's what they're talking about. That no, that magnificent achievement is going to be undone.
Yeah. No. Anyway, that's their legal tactic. So let's see if it works. Dave, let's talk about Putin. Now, I want to divide this in two sections because this is the main story by a mile and we've got heaps of updates.
Yep.
Let's divide this into the Putin-Trump bit and then the Zelensky-Europe bit.
Okay.
So let's start. Do you want to start with the Putin bit?
Okay, so let's start with how Putin's trip to Anchorage went. So we gave you a preview of this on the last PEP. That meeting has happened now. I was watching it all unfold early on Saturday morning, Australian time, when it happened because I talked to our friend Dominic Knight about it on ABC Breakfast. Thanks for cross-promoting us, by the way, Dom.
And now we're cross-promoting him.
Yes, and now we're cross-promoting him. He is on ABC Sydney at the moment, I think, on Friday afternoons and on Saturday mornings. Well, actually, before I talk about this, I just want to say... So there's been a lot of body language analysis of this meeting.
Yes, there has.
A lot of body language analysis of this meeting. Now, body language analysis has a deservedly poor reputation.
Yes.
Famously, there is no qualification for being a body language expert.
Yes.
And you often do see a lot of shit like, if you look to the right, that's a sign he's lying.
Yeah.
When we are going to look at what body language means in this segment, what we're looking at is the cultural significance of these actions. We're not trying to get into the bullshit psychology of this is what this person is thinking. Yeah, okay. That what we're doing is looking at the cultural significance because there are some pretty obvious things that came out of the physical interaction between these two men. So their planes are both on the tarmac.
Yep.
Trump gets out of his plane first and starts crossing the tarmac on a red carpet.
Yep.
Then Putin gets out of his plane and starts crossing the tarmac on his red carpet.
Are we going to look at this?
We are going to look at this.
Okay.
Now, even the order in which this has happened, you might see that as a reversal of the actual kind of order of power, right? Which is Trump is the one waiting for Putin.
Applauding.
Yes, and applauding
Yes.
while waiting for Putin. Now, okay, waiting for Putin, that is just good host etiquette.
Sure.
Applauding him, you can imagine how that played on Russian state media. That's all I'm going to say. Now, I don't think that was necessarily Trump being particularly obsequious. I think Trump was bored having to stand in the one place for an entire minute.
I was going to say that.
Waiting for someone else to get there. Like, what am I going to do with my hands? I'll clap them. But that played extremely well on Russian state television. Trump waiting there for Putin to descend from his plane and clapping as he crossed the tarmac on a red carpet.
There was so much about this that people were talking about. Not
Yes.
just the applauding, not just they looked giggly and
Yep.
cherubic.
Yep.
Not just that American troops were on their hands and knees putting the red carpet underneath Putin's feet when he came down from the plane. Also that you had people talking about that, but then you also had on the other side you had the Trump fanboys were going, oh, look, there was a real big alpha move having B-2 planes fly over and then having Putin in the limo driving past all these military planes. That was intimidating him. And there's just so much of this, both sides trying to come up with as you say, symbolism that was really significant. Is any of this significant at all, Dave?
Well, I don't think that little exchange was actually particularly significant. There was other stuff later on that happened that was quite significant.
Okay.
There were certainly multiple breaches of protocol going on. Okay, so when Putin got in the limo with Trump without an interpreter, that's a huge breach of diplomatic and security protocol. Now, Vladimir Putin has at least some proficiency in English. We saw that at the press conference, but I would like to show you a much better example of Vladimir Putin's proficiency in English.
I found my thrill on Blueberry Hill. On Blueberry Hill. When I found you, the moon stood still. On Blueberry Hill. And lingered until my dreams came true.
Okay, so
What the hell is Kevin Costner doing
if
here?
you're wondering what did I just see, apart from my dreams coming true, that was a charity event in St. Petersburg in 2010.
With Kevin Costner.
Yeah, there were a bunch of rich Americans.
Goldie Hawn.
In that audience, yes. None of them clapping along in time. All of them clapping, but none of them clapping along in time.
The thing I find amazing about that clip
Yes.
is that I look at Putin today and I go, oh my God, it's Phil Collins. But back then, 20 years ago, he looked like Nasser Hussain. He's gone from one English celebrity to another English celebrity. It's extraordinary. Can you put Nasser Hussain next to the old Putin and then put new Putin next to Phil Collins? Thank you.
Yes. Okay. So, we've got no idea what Putin discussed in the limo with Trump. But the fact is, what all of this suggests is this was a very comfortable environment for Putin. And it was an environment where he made himself right at home.
Sure.
You don't need to go into excessive analysis of symbolism or body language analysis to see this was being made a very comfortable environment for Putin. And certainly being able to fly, as I said last week, to the most powerful country in the world in the knowledge that he would not be arrested in order to sit down as an equal with the most powerful person on earth, that was always going to be a symbolic win for him no matter what came out of the summit.
Okay, I want to ask you a question about that as well.
Yes.
Because that point about elevation onto the world stage, that was made repeatedly by a lot of people. You've elevated him by providing him with this platform.
Yep.
Marco Rubio was asked about that numerous times.
Yep.
And over the weekend, and I thought, he made a pretty good fist of trying to respond to that. This is what he said. And I'd like to know, your reaction to his comment.
Critics of President Trump will say the pomp and circumstance, the red carpet, the warm handshake, that President Trump simply lost that Putin gained there just by being on the world stage and walking down a red carpet with the president. Your reaction to that?
Well, critics of President Trump are always going to find something to criticize. You don't even pay attention to it anymore. But I will tell you this. Putin is already on the world stage. He's already on the world stage. The guy's conducting a full-scale war in Ukraine. He's already on the world stage. He has the world's largest tactical nuclear arsenal in the world and the second largest strategic nuclear arsenal in the world. He's already on the world stage. When I hear people say that, it elevates him. Well, all we do is talk about Putin all the time. All the media's done is talk about Putin all the time for the last 4 or 5 years.
Is that a fair response?
He's missing the point. Yes, Putin is prominent because he's waging a war, and of course he's prominent in the international media. This here is elevating him diplomatically. When the rest of the world, it's not fair to say the rest of the world, when the rest of the West is treating him as a pariah, and where the US has treated him as a pariah for a long time, this is a massive upgrade in his diplomatic status. This is giving him a certain amount of diplomatic legitimacy that he didn't have before. But even more importantly, once again, how do you think Russian state media is interpreting this? Right? They saw that as an unambiguous win. And that is important because Putin is somebody who has to constantly maintain that legitimacy. That legitimacy is always under threat. Right. You can suppress opposition as much as you want. As we saw a couple of years ago when a coup came staggeringly close to actually succeeding in Russia, Putin faces constant threats to his legitimacy. And certainly how this would have played back in Russian state media, how it did play back in Russian state media is Putin has been accepted. Okay, Putin has fought his way onto this stage.
What did singing Blueberry Hill do to his status, Dave?
Oh, well, you would have to ask Kevin Costner about that. You have to ask Kevin Costner, what did you think of Putin before and what do you think of him now?
Okay, you keep going.
Yes. A couple of other, well, one other major protocol breach. The full agenda of the meeting was found left in the printer of a hotel in Alaska.
There's a lot of breaches going on there.
Yes, which that actually included the exact rooms that they were going to be meeting in Elmensdorf-Richardson Air Base. Now, the White House response to this was to go, that was basically just the lunch menu.
Yeah.
And true, it did contain the lunch menu. In case you're wondering, it involved filet mignon and halibut.
I wasn't.
I bet it would have been like the crappiest alternating wedding dinner ever. That is what they would have served him because that is the kind of food that Trump absolutely loves. But never happened because lunch never happened.
Yes.
Okay, so the original plan was that it would go for at least 5 hours, that there was, first of all, going to be a one-on-one meeting between Putin and Trump. Then there was going to be an extended meeting involving 3 advisors on each side. Then there was going to be an informal lunch. Then there was going to be a press conference. The press conference ended up happening a lot earlier than that because as far as we can see, what actually happened was there was only really one meeting. And it wasn't just Trump and Putin one-on-one. It involved the advisors as well.
And you're talking about breaches in protocol,
Yes.
Dave. It certainly started off interestingly, at least according to Jackie Heinrich from Fox News, I might add. This is what she had to say.
You know, we were told that we were going to have an opportunity to put questions to both leaders after a joint press conference in the event that the meeting went well enough that they could set the stage for a second meeting. And the President Trump said if that didn't happen, he was likely to call off the joint presser and just address the media solo and then send Putin home. Neither of those things happened.
Now, the press conference itself, okay, this is where, once again, you don't need body language analysis bullshit, and you don't need a deep understanding of diplomatic symbolism to understand that a press conference where Putin speaks first
Yes.
and just goes on and on and on with undiluted Kremlin propaganda points, which we've all heard before, not suggesting any kind of compromise whatsoever.
Yeah.
And
Heinrich didn't like that either.
And then Trump kind of comes over to the microphone afterwards and says not much more than, oh, well, we had a great conversation, but there's no deal yet, and I'm going to make some calls now to Zelensky and to NATO. That definitely looked like a triumph for Vladimir Putin. Now, just to get to some of the things that Putin actually said and what he meant by them.
Yes.
The most important thing that he said was that there can't be peace until the root causes are addressed.
We're convinced that in order to make the settlement lasting and long term, we need to eliminate all the primary roots, the primary causes of that conflict. And we've said it multiple times, to consider all legitimate concerns of Russia and to reinstate a just balance of security in Europe and in the world on the whole.
I highlight that as well.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing, because the bottom line is that's just Putin saying nothing's changed.
Yes.
This is what I've been saying for the last 3 years.
The causes he sees the Ukrainian government as the root cause of the conflict, that and the possibility of NATO expansion. Now, we have talked before, we've been talking for years about the very real role that what Putin sees as the NATO threat played in this. And we speculated before about how maybe this could have been managed differently by the US, and how Putin really did see a threat, especially during the Bush administration, from this sort of constant encroachment of NATO. But the whole thing is, the other root cause that he sees is the Ukrainian government. He has said the Ukrainian government needs to change.
And their ability to defend themselves.
And their ability to defend themselves basically needs to disappear.
Because Zelensky gave up on NATO ages ago.
Yes.
That's not a factor.
Yes.
But Putin has demands on what their military can be like.
Yes.
And what their government can be like.
That's exactly right. Okay, so that's saying that hasn't changed. Another important thing he says is, we've always considered Ukraine to be a brotherly nation. What he means by that is Ukraine is Russian.
Yes.
Right? Ukraine is not actually a distinctive national entity. So he is holding fast to his idea that Ukraine shouldn't really exist. Third point is,
Sorry.
Yes.
Before I say that, I would chip in that at one point in time he did actually seem to at least implicitly suggest that Ukraine should exist.
And I agree with President Trump, as he has said today, that naturally the security of Ukraine should be ensured as well. Naturally, we're prepared to work on that.
So there is an implication there that Ukraine should survive and should have some kind of security. It's a pathetic concession, but that is a concession he hasn't made before.
Yes, but this brings me to my third point about what Russia means by security guarantees.
Go on.
In the very first attempted peace talks in this conflict, which happened in Istanbul in April of 2022, the conditions that Russia laid down were, in terms of Ukraine's security guarantees, that Russia would be one of the security guarantors alongside the United States and European powers and China.
Keep them safe like the mafia does.
Yeah, and that each of these guarantors would have veto powers over the other about how Ukraine was to be defended.
Okay, so it needs to exist as a vassal state.
Yes. This is what he means by security guarantees.
Yeah.
And this is what he has come back to this week, to the surprise of the Americans. Now, one of the things that has come out of this meeting and Witkoff's prior meeting with Moscow, and conversations that have happened between the US and Russia since then, is the Americans keep coming away not understanding what the Russians actually mean by things like security guarantees. And when it's spelt out to them, they're like, oh, fuck no, we're not. What?
Yeah.
That's what they meant?
Yeah. I was going to say, what about Witkoff?
Yes.
Who, I don't know how he can be so bad at his job.
Yeah.
But he comes out. He was in that meeting. He was there, seeing that meeting. He comes out of that meeting saying, quote,
Yeah.
we were able to win the following concession. The United States could offer Article 5-like protection. That's NATO protection.
Yes.
Which is one of the real reasons why Ukraine wants to be in NATO. We sort of were able to bypass that and get an agreement that the United States could offer Article 5 protection, which was the first time we had ever heard the Russians agree to that. There's no way Vladimir Putin said that.
No.
There's zero chance.
They did not. Sergei Lavrov described that as a road to utopia leading nowhere. The literal meaning of utopia, nowhere. He said this is a fantasy. Like, no, there are not going to be Article 5 style security guarantees.
Yes.
Now, I want to dwell a little bit on these constant misunderstandings that are taking place between the Russian and American negotiating teams.
Please.
This is not just incompetence and inexperience, although that does feed into it.
Yes, it does.
It does feed into it quite a lot. But there's a long history of misunderstandings happening in diplomacy, sometimes with disastrous consequences.
Okay.
The best example I can think of was in the 18th century.
Sure.
That was when the British sent their envoy, Macartney, to China, demanding that China open up its markets to the West.
Just you'd want them to be clear about this if you're going to send someone like months on a journey to deliver the message.
Yes, who could not speak Chinese, naturally enough, that the Chinese could not speak. The emperor couldn't speak English. He had interpreters. So Macartney comes with his letter. There was a big hoo-ha about protocol, right? About whether he was going to perform the kowtow, which would have been prostrating himself before the emperor.
Yeah.
He didn't want to because he saw that as humiliating. In the end, he did the bow that he would have done to his own king, although there were ambassadors from a lot of other places who were doing these very extravagant kowtows. Macartney also was apparently dressed in beautiful blue silk, unlike everybody else who was quite plainly dressed because you're not supposed to outshine the emperor. So when Macartney went away, got back to Tianjin, he got a message back from the emperor, which this is often taught in American schools actually as an example of the emperor not really understanding what the British wanted from him. And I'm paraphrasing here. He's like, oh, we've received this offer that you want to give these goods to us. We've got no use for your barbarian shit. Thank you very much. We've got really good stuff in China. No.
Yeah.
Now, that's often described as
a misunderstanding.
As a misunderstanding that this hubristic Chinese emperor had no idea actually of what was coming in the full force of Western military might that was about to lead to the century of humiliation of China. Because what this ultimately led to was complete foreign military encirclement and encroachment on China and forcible opening up of Chinese markets and wars that led to the deaths of millions of people. However, there's a historian called Henrietta Harrison who's pointed out, no, that is not what was going on. He was fully aware of this. He knew that this was a prelude to an imperial adventure and he was trying to forestall it. He actually sent his troops to the islands that he knew that the British had designs on because he knew about the security threat. What he was doing by responding to the letter that way was essentially just refusing to acknowledge, to buy into the whole British view of the world, which is the world is our market and you ultimately have to open yourselves up to it, right? So he was refusing to play their language game. Now, the consequence ultimately was that China was militarily overwhelmed. But the legend that this was a misunderstanding by a stupid emperor, that was actually something that was subsequently invented by early Republican Chinese historians who wanted to discredit the whole Manchu dynasty and needed someone to blame for the century of humiliation. Okay, so that's one example of where what appears to be a misunderstanding is actually grounded in a refusal to accept somebody else's worldview. Another famous diplomatic misunderstanding was Saddam Hussein's invasion of Kuwait. When Saddam Hussein was very clearly amassing troops on the borders of Kuwait, there was no response from the Bush administration. And Saddam Hussein interpreted that as a green light. In fact, he had had very positive communications from someone, I forget his first name, Glaspie, the American ambassador, and he interpreted that, but never an explicit, yes, you can go ahead and invade. But that is how it was interpreted by Saddam Hussein. And in fact, for the first 3 days of the invasion, I think that Bush's position was, we will defend Saudi Arabia And it wasn't until a few days in that you get this full-throated, this invasion of Kuwait will not stand. Okay, so there was, and I mean, there's a lot of controversy about this, but yeah, certainly Saddam Hussein thought that he was getting a green light from George H.W. Bush. Now, I think that is more kind of in the, that's in the realm of pure misunderstanding, but at the same time, you can see why this misunderstanding happened from Hussein's point of view. Like, if you really have a problem with this, of course you are going to respond. Like, I'm massing my troops here to see what your response is going to be. You don't respond. I'm sending them in. That was Saddam Hussein's view of the world. Now, I feel that what's going on here with these constant misunderstandings is that these American negotiators will not accept Russia's view of the world, and the Russians will not accept the American view of the world at all. When you talk about the term misunderstanding, right, it often involves it sounds trivial. It sounds like something that can be overcome by better communication or by more information. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's about, will you actually buy into the other side's view of the world? And so when they use terms like sovereignty and security guarantees, are you going to use those terms in the same way that they will? And the answer here is no. There are completely different views of the world at stake. At the moment, everybody seems to accept that the liberal international order is either on its way out or, at the very least, under severe stress. But it's very difficult to see what's actually going to replace it. And I think that what some people who are sort of Trump aligned are thinking about this is, look, what needs to replace this is just a system of enlightened national self-interest, right? That every state, especially the big powerful states, we act in our own interests, we make the deals accordingly. Now, two things here. First of all, the liberal international order was devised in the national self-interest of the United States. The designers of it, that's how they best saw guaranteeing. But the thing is, any order that subsequently arises is not going to be devoid of ideological content in this way, right? There's never going to be any such thing as a purely transactional system, because all of these transactions are deeply embedded in some system of social meaning about how the world works.
Sure.
And so how the world works for Vladimir Putin is Russia is a great power that has been unjustly constrained, that's been sold out by its own idiotic elites, but it has the absolute right to act as a power in its sphere of influence. And Ukraine is part of that sphere of influence. Ukraine is historically part of Russia. Russia has the right to control the Black Sea in the same way that other major powers exercise control over other very strategically important areas. Russia has this by virtue of its power. Now, there is some speculation that this is fairly close to the way that Trump views the world as well. There was an article by Stacey Goddard in Foreign Affairs arguing that Trump has actually left behind the idea of great power competition. What he now actually wants is great power concert, right? He believes that Russia and China and the United States should basically all be managing the system for their mutual benefit, which would involve recognition of mutually exclusive spheres of influence. But we can see Trump is, maybe part of that idea appeals to Trump, but Trump seems quite a long way from that idea. When you look at what he recently did with Armenia and Azerbaijan, that it's setting up American control of a vital corridor on Russia's doorstep.
Yeah.
Right? Trump definitely sees the United States as having the right to be involved in parts of the world which Russia and China consider to be rightfully their domains.
But Trump can have a certain ideology and also be a massive hypocrite.
He can. Hypocrisy is a very important part of the international system. The point that I'm making is there's never going to be a purely transactional international system because nobody is going to agree on all the rules for that, especially on the rules of who is a legitimate player.
Sure.
In the international system. Anything that replaces the liberal international order is going to have ideological content. And what we can see is there's still more residual commitment to the liberal international order just in terms of the way that people like Trump and Witkoff actually see the world and see America's right to intervene in other places in order to bring peace and prosperity. They actually haven't let go of that idea. They might have a more kind of mercenary and nationalistic view of it than the previous architects of the liberal international order had. But at the same time, the idea that the US can go wherever it wants and do whatever it wants for its national interest with the expectation that the rest of the world is going to see this as a good thing and go along with it, that has not been lost.
Yeah.
And the fact that the US goes into negotiations with Russia with this point of view, seeming to think that Russia should share this point of view as well, whereas the Russians go into these negotiations thinking, finally, here's an American leader who actually understands our view of the world, who actually understands Russian national interests and Russian national rights. And yet they keep coming away from these negotiations with completely different ideas of what has actually been agreed upon. That's symptomatic of the fact they are not playing the same language games. They don't actually share the same worldviews. These misunderstandings are going to keep happening because it's not just a matter of ignorance or miscommunication. It's a matter of very different views about how the world works.
That is the first time I've heard that point. That is quite interesting.
Yeah, so we're going to keep seeing these misunderstandings going on. The overall reaction that I saw, because I was following the media very closely to this, was, I would say, sort of half relief, right? So the fact that Trump said there's no deal, now I'm going to go back to NATO and Ukraine, that was interpreted as, okay, Trump has given Putin a symbolic victory, but at least he hasn't given anything else away.
True. There was relief about that.
There was relief about that. Did not last very long, though.
No, because we look at some of the details dribbling out.
Yes.
And it seemed to be a lot less positive.
It did seem to be a lot less positive.
Should we talk about Putin's offer?
Yes.
Okay, so because the Wall Street Journal was reporting on this.
Yep.
That Putin demanded Ukraine withdraw from Donetsk.
Yep.
And from Luhansk.
Yes.
As a condition for ending the war.
Yes.
But he did offer Trump a freeze along the remaining front line other than that.
Yes.
He would also sign a written statement pledging not to attack Ukraine again. I'm sure that would be of great value to Zelensky.
Yes.
And he would consent to some kind of security guarantees for Ukraine. You already talked about what those security guarantees might be.
Yep.
So that's the offer, right, that we understand, at least according to the Wall Street Journal.
Yes.
So to be fair to Putin, that means he's seeking withdrawal from 2 regions from Ukraine, not 4, which is what was before. So there's a small concession there.
Yes.
And Luhansk is almost entirely under Russian control, we should say as well.
Yep.
Ukraine does still hold 25% of Donetsk.
Yes.
Including a few cities and heavily fortified positions.
Yes.
Whose defence has cost tens of thousands of lives.
Yes.
It's not really tenable for Zelensky to concede for a couple of reasons. Firstly, let's look at the politics.
Yep.
It's unprecedented, obviously, to surrender unconquered land.
Yep.
So,
yes.
Especially this much.
Yes. It's been described as Russia trying to achieve through the negotiating table what it couldn't achieve through military conquest, and it is almost unprecedented.
And were they ever? Putin, in 3 years of war, took 200,000 people in Donetsk, like cities. And the city's worth 200,000 people. What's left over in Donetsk?
Yes.
A city's worth 600,000 people.
Yes.
And that was 3 years.
Yes.
Also, Donetsk has a lot of valuable industrial and mining areas
Yep.
that haven't been taken yet, including the sole source of coking coal for Ukraine's entire steel industry, as well as all their rare earth and mineral deposits vital to their infrastructure, the defense industry infrastructure. As one Ukrainian activist put it, the battles for Bakhmut and Advidiivka were amongst the fiercest of this war. what was the point then? The Russians can't break us on the battlefield, so they're aiming to break us on morale.
Yes.
That's the political reasons. Then there's security reasons. Zelensky, quote, "If we withdraw from the Donbass today, our fortifications, our terrain, the heights we control, we will clearly open a bridgehead for the Russians to prepare an offensive."
Yep.
This is so unreasonable a request that a few months ago, even J.D. Vance was suggesting it was an unacceptable, unreasonable demand.
We knew that Russia would ask for too much because the Russian perception of the war is on the ground, they're winning. And of course, the Ukrainians would like to do a ceasefire, in part because things have not been going so well for the Ukrainians the last few months. And our attitude is we don't want Ukraine to collapse. We obviously want Ukraine to remain a sovereign country, but Russia can't expect to be given territory that they haven't even conquered yet. And that's one of the things that they put down in that initial peace plan. So.
And Vance even reiterated that a few days ago in the UK.
Yeah.
So, yes, that was quite a shock that was one of the things that, was part of this deal that Trump was considering.
Yeah.
There was a very direct Sudetenland comparison made, which was the Sudetenland region of Czechoslovakia. Once again, that's where all of Czechoslovakia's fortifications were. That was the heavily mountainous and forested area filled with pillboxes. That's where all their fortifications were. Same thing with this region of Donetsk that Russia wants to take without military conquest. This is a mountainous area. This is where, all the fortifications are. If Russia was to get that, then Ukraine would essentially be defending flat, open land. A far harder proposition. And they would have to spend years to build fortifications there. So that would basically be facilitating the next Russian invasion.
It would. Do you have more thoughts about the offer before you talk about some other changes from after the summit?
No.
No? Okay.
Go on.
All right. Well, I'll raise these and you might have something to say.
Mm-hmm.
To me, the two biggest changes after the summit versus before were, number one, Putin put the onus back on Zelensky.
Yes.
He convinced Trump that he is a brick wall.
Yes.
Putin is a brick wall and that he doesn't need to budge. And if there's going to be peace, it will have to be Zelensky who concedes.
Yes.
And so this is what Trump was saying to Handy.
Now it's really up to President Zelensky to get it done. And I would also say the European nations, they have to get involved a little bit. But it's up to President Zelensky, I think.
So Putin gave this ridiculous offer, and he convinced Trump that, whether you like it or not, this is the offer. It's up to Zelensky.
Yeah.
And Trump doesn't care who concedes. He just wants the killing to stop so he can win his Nobel Peace Prize. We'll get to that.
Yes.
And, Putin putting it in Trump's head that it's going to have to be Zelensky to concede, that was an achievement of the summit.
That really was, yes.
So that is, and on Truth Social, Trump backed that up. President Zelensky of Ukraine can end the war with Russia almost immediately if he wants to, or he can continue to fight. So that's, to me, one of the big changes.
Yep.
The other big change is going into the summit, it was all about a ceasefire.
Exactly, yes.
I want to see a ceasefire rapidly. I don't know if it's going to be today, but I'm not going to be happy if it's not today. Everyone said it can't be today, but I'm just saying I want the killing to stop. I'm in this to stop the killing.
In fact, if there wasn't a ceasefire, Dave, Trump said the consequences would be very severe.
I said earlier this week that Putin would face severe consequences if you get the sense from him that he's not interested. What do you mean by that?
Economically severe. Yes, it will be very severe. I'm not doing this for my health, okay? I don't need it. I'd like to focus on our country, but I'm doing this to save a lot of lives. Yeah, very severe.
But after the summit, all of a sudden, Trump is tweeting this out. It was determined by all that the best way to end the horrific war between Russia and Ukraine is to go directly to a peace agreement, which would end the war, and not a mere ceasefire agreement, which oftentimes do not hold up. This, of course, has been Putin's demand for months.
Yes.
A peace agreement rather than a ceasefire agreement. Europe and Zelensky have been insisting on a ceasefire. Why? Because ceasefires are immediate.
Yes.
Negotiating for peace can take months.
Yes.
And the constant deaths and airstrikes happening while the negotiations continue are a way of bullying Ukrainians into conceding quickly.
That is right. Now, it is very true that ceasefires often don't last. We've seen a lot of ceasefires not lasting around the world this year. In fact, 80% of ceasefires fail. But some ceasefires do last. Korean War, there has never been a peace treaty negotiated to end it. That is still a ceasefire. The war in Cyprus is still a ceasefire. That has also been going on, I think, since the 1950s. So feel free to correct me about that. There is actually such a thing as a lasting ceasefire that can be negotiated, especially if it's got the support of international superpowers, like the Korean ceasefire and the Cypriot ceasefire.
Not all peace agreements last either. Not all security agreements last. Remember, they've already got a security. They already had a security agreement. They had the Budapest Memorandum.
Yeah.
That wasn't much good.
No.
Right. So,
and I mean, given the underlying issues that we're talking about here, the differences between Ukraine and Russia, forget months. These peace negotiations will last years or decades.
Yeah.
So you can definitely see why Ukraine wants a ceasefire, and also I believe why a ceasefire is actually the only feasible solution. I think a long-term ceasefire. I don't expect to see a peace agreement at any time. So assuming that whoever ultimately replaces Putin is someone fairly similar to Putin, and whoever replaces Zelensky has the same commitments to Ukraine's national sovereignty, although that one, admittedly, given the history of Ukrainian politics, is more open to question. Like for a long time, you know, Ukrainian politics was basically about how much do we defer to Russia. So, yeah, I mean, the suddenly appearing to back away from a commitment to a ceasefire you can see why people were very, very scared by that.
Did you observe anything else worth noting about the
Trump-Putin summit?
Yeah.
Okay, let's get back to body language because Trump has been making a bit of a thing about this just today. So this is Friday, Australian time. Now, we'll get back into Trump's wild manic swings between pro-Russian and pro-Ukrainian positions, but he's gone back on a bit of a Ukraine tangent today. And I think part of this is a response to the fact that everybody has been saying what big symbolic victories Putin was handed, and it just looked like Putin walked all over Trump. Trump on Truth Social has been like, no, have a look at this picture of me pointing my finger in Putin's chest, and look how similar it is to this very famous photo of then Vice President Richard Nixon pointing at Russia's President Khrushchev.
Putin's smiling.
Exactly. Look at how different those pictures are. Look at the expressions on their faces.
Yeah.
He looks like he's pointing out something on Putin's tie there. And it looks like his advisor is staring very closely at what's on Putin's tie, and Putin is smiling. Now, okay, in contrast, look at the photo there. Richard Nixon with the most fierce Richard Nixon look, getting right up. It is jabbing his finger into his lapel, and Khrushchev really looking quite upset, quite out of sorts. And look at the look of shock on the advisors' faces there.
Yeah,
okay?
they say he looked tense.
This looks very different. Okay? But
Nixon in particular looks quite aggressive,
yes.
I think. Yeah.
Okay, now, and this is the way that this photo was used, right? Richard Nixon used this, because this is 1958 or 59. Richard Nixon used this in his 1960 election campaign to say, this is me standing up to the Soviet Union. This photo was also used in the Soviet Union as a symbol of American aggression. But Chaz, let me give you a little bit of a lesson on why this kind of body language analysis isn't always what it's cracked up to be. Do you know what they're arguing about here?
Trump and Putin?
No.
Nixon?
Yep.
No, I don't.
Kitchen appliances.
Really?
This came from what was known as the kitchen debates of 1959.
There was more than one?
Yes. Now, okay, in case you're wondering, why is it the vice president here being able to get in the premier of Russia's face like this, which would be a breach of diplomatic protocol? That's because there's more to this photo than meets the eye. In 1959, the United States and Russia, in the interests of cultural understanding, agreed to each hold expos in the other's capital, right, to display what each society had to offer. So this is in the Moscow Expo. Okay, Eisenhower was too important to go to this, so he sent Nixon along to this. In this Moscow exhibition room, there was a setup of like, this is the kitchen of a typical American household, right? Of a home worth $14,000. Look at all this amazing kitchen stuff. Yeah. Look at all of these kitchen implements. This shows you how much better capitalism is than communism. This is what a working class American gets.
Just imagine 958. Look at these knives.
Yeah, well, it was.
Look at this chopping board.
There was a lemon juicer. Right?
Look at the juicer.
Yeah, not an electronic juicer, like a thing that you squeeze. Squeeze a lemon onto. Nixon saying, do you have that? And Khrushchev's response was, you get more juice out of it just by cutting the lemon into quarters and squeezing it that way. And
that's what he was angry about.
That's what the argument was about. Now, okay, like I acknowledge, it wasn't just about kitchen appliances. This was about the superiority of capitalism versus communism.
Sure.
This is why they're this angry about kitchen appliance. It was a much bigger debate. But the point is, this wasn't some summit where they were arguing over territory.
I understand.
Right? This was them having an ideological debate in the context of kitchen implements.
Yeah.
And in terms of, here's Nixon really standing up to Khrushchev. Like, within a couple of years, the Soviet Union was moving nuclear missiles into Cuba.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like Khrushchev was so intimidated by the kitchen debates that, that Russia was forced to back off.
If I was a representative of LG, I'd be very impressed.
Yes. So...
Supervisor? I'm not saying they're good.
Well, okay. Once again, this is not an endorsement. So the photographer who took that, he wasn't some seasoned diplomatic veteran. He was a photographer for the company Westinghouse. He was there to take photos of Richard Nixon standing in front of fridges in Moscow and talking about how great they were. He just happened to be there when he snapped this perfect propaganda photo of Trump getting into Khrushchev's face. So anyway, be very wary, even when interpreting very famous photos that appear to show these kind of interactions. Often photos are showing you exactly what they appear, but something like that, I think, requires a lot more context. And suffice to say, I don't know what they're talking about here. No one knows what they're talking about here, but I'm sure it's something significantly less low stakes than kitchen implements and which economic system produces them better.
Yeah. But also,
yes,
like Trump's trying to sell, I stood up to him and I got his measure with that photo.
Yeah.
You don't need photos to demonstrate that Putin got one over him.
I know.
You just need to watch the Hannity interview afterwards.
Okay.
And Trump himself made very clear that Putin got into his head. Like, we got a few examples of that one. Should I go?
Yes, go for
it. Trump basically reported to us that Putin messed with his head when he said this.
Oh, Vladimir Putin said something. One of the most interesting things, he said your election was rigged because you have mail-in voting. He said mail-in voting every election. He said no country has mail-in voting. It's impossible to have mail-in voting and have honest elections. And he said that to me. It was very interesting because we talked about 2020. He said, you won that election by so much. And that's how he got it. He said, and if you would have won, we wouldn't have had a war. You'd have all these millions of people alive now instead of dead. And he said, and you lost it because of mail-in voting. It was a rigged election, but mail-in voting, Sean.
Renowned democracy expert Vladimir Putin tells Trump no other country has mail-in voting.
Fair election enthusiast Vladimir Putin. See, the thing is, normally when Trump says things like that, I'm saying, where's the sir? Where's the sir? He's clearly making this up. But in this case, I believe him. I believe Putin said exactly that, word for word.
Yep.
Because Putin was clearly messing with his head. And it's so obvious how you do it.
Yes.
By the way, on the Putin renowned election expert and fair election enthusiast, Trump's ex-security advisor, Fiona Hill, had a very interesting point about that.
And President Trump asserted in his Fox News interview that there are no countries in the world that allow mail-in voting. well, Russia allows mail-in voting. And if everybody wants to go out and look, they can look for themselves. In 2020, President Vladimir Putin signed into law Russians being able to vote by mail and also on the internet.
And internet voting. It's not just mail-in voting. Internet voting is so much dodgier.
Amazing.
It's just so clearly he's messing with his head, right?
Yes.
We'll talk more about mail-in voting later. We don't do this right now.
Yeah.
But just it's about to get in the head. That's a critical
And also Trump mentioned this was another nauseating feature of this press conference that I can't remember if it was, I think it was actually after Trump had said his bit. Then Putin came back in and he said this thing about, look, we didn't want this war to happen and the United States didn't allow us to negotiate an end to the conflict. This is paraphrasing, but he said, but I sincerely believe that if Trump had been there, the war would not have happened.
Today, when President Trump saying that if he was the president back then, there will be no war. And I'm quite sure that it would indeed be so. I can confirm that. I think that overall, me and President Trump have built a very good, business-like and trustworthy contact.
He just keeps saying what Trump wants to hear.
Yes.
That's another example, by the way, from Axios.
Yeah.
I'll just read it directly from Axios. Trump told Zelensky, this is in the phone call afterwards,
Yep.
that Putin had told him that Russia was making significant progress on the front lines. Now, if he wanted, he could capture the entire Donetsk region and other areas where fighting's taking place.
He's just chosen not to so far.
Yeah. According to the source, Zelensky told Trump that Putin was misrepresenting the situation on the front. Apart from the fact that it's been going for 3 years and he still hasn't taken it.
Yeah.
At the current rate of advance,
Yes.
which, by the way, is faster than it's been before now.
Yep.
It'll take 4.5 more years and
Yes.
1.9 million additional casualties in order to capture the four oblasts that he's after.
Yes.
So, yeah, he's not going to do it tomorrow.
By the way, on Putin's point about we've established a very business-like relationship,
Yeah.
can I actually just give Trump 1 point of credit? And I know I'm probably going to regret this later on. Putin had brought a bunch of businessmen with him, and it was clear that Putin wanted to have discussions about things other than Ukraine, that because Putin has said before what he wants is a business relationship with the United States, and he is sort of waving this prospect of like this almighty energy partnership between the US and Russia in front of Trump, knowing that this is something that would appeal to Trump. There's no indication that Trump went for that at all. There's no indication that anything other than Ukraine was discussed. When Trump said on the plane that they want to talk business, but we can't do that until Ukraine was resolved, it appears that Trump has stuck to that, which is something that we can be grateful for.
That answers the question from Rachel from Queensland.
Yeah.
Can I just throw a question out about the Putin catch-up? How do we know it was primarily about Ukraine? Why is no one talking about all the Russian businessmen in attendance? Not to mention some department secretaries have no relevance in negotiations in Ukraine, like Besant and Lutnick. Trump has always wanted a tower in Moscow. I suspect Ukraine was a side chat. You're saying it wasn't.
From everything that we've read, those businessmen weren't part of the conversation. And it does seem to have been predominantly about it. If some business deal had been done, Trump would have been talking about it.
That's probably true.
This is not the sort of thing he keeps secret. So look, I was very worried about that, but it does actually appear that in that instance, Trump stuck to his word.
Okay, so we know that Putin got in his head.
Yep.
We know that Putin got some key concessions from him, which we've already talked about.
Yep.
Oh, by the way, the best example of Putin getting in his head was from later in the week. I know we're going to talk about this later on, but we should play it now because it's relevant to now.
Yes.
Is Trump on the hot mic to Zelensky about Putin? Let's just play that.
I think he wants to make a deal for me. You understand that? As crazy as it sounds. Just sit down.
That's Trump saying, I think Putin wants to make a deal for me.
For me.
Do you understand, as crazy as it sounds? Yeah. Putin is in his head. Because what I just said there about the concessions and the fact he was in his head, that explains why the European leaders were freaking out.
Absolutely freaking out.
And just flew directly to Washington for the second part.
Yes.
So that's the setup of the situation there. Okay, all right. I reckon, looking at the time here, I reckon we got time for probably one other topic before we get to part 2.
Okay, yep.
I'll let you choose, Dave.
Yep.
And we may, depending on when you have to go, we may not squeeze one of these in after you go.
Yep.
We've got 2026, 2028 elections.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of different things around that.
Yep.
Like mail-in voting, gerrymandering, all that kind of stuff, Newsom. We've got a DC crime update.
Yep.
We've got update on inflation in the BLS.
Yes.
And we're going to update on Epstein. We've got 4 updates. Which one do you want?
Let's do an inflation BLS update.
Okay, let's do that then. All right. Okay. I did tell you last week about EJ Anthony. I don't think you were here when I was talking about that. I told the Peppers that he was generally considered to be incredibly unqualified, even by conservative economists. Yep. Anyone who's an economist thought he was crap. Like, for instance, Jessica Riedel, who's conservative and an economist, who wrote, "The articles and tweets I've seen him publish are probably the most error-filled of any think tank economist right now." He co-wrote a paper last year trying to argue that the economy was actually in a recession.
Wow.
Last year, and they supposedly proved that by, wait for it, adjusting the official statistics. When other economists tried to go over Anthony's working, it wasn't just his ideas were incorrect. They couldn't even replicate his results using his own numbers.
Amazing.
So what that tells you is either he was so incompetent he made heaps of mistakes, or he was just dishonest with his results.
Yeah.
Neither is great for the head of the Statistics Bureau, and neither is trying to write a paper where you adjust the official statistics.
No.
That's not great either. Then there was the time, just after Trump sacked the previous BLS chief, when Steve Bannon and EJ Anthony had a little chat, and they shared the desire for Trump to just pick a MAGA hack as the next BLS chief.
Have we put in our own person into BLS? Is a MAGA Republican that President Trump knows and trusts? Are they running the Bureau of Labor Statistics yet, sir?
No, unfortunately, Steve, we still haven't gotten there.
Unfortunately. Now, that was Anthony agreeing with Bannon's sentiment. The next BLS chief should be a MAGA hack. I didn't even mention that he was seen January 6. Now, to be fair, he's just over there in that little circle on the bottom there. He's walking away. He didn't go inside the Capitol. He just wandered around like Where's Wally for a while. Yeah. He insists he was there for meetings. Don't know what kind of meetings he was having and with who. Anyway, so what are your thoughts about EJ Anthony for a start?
Look at that facial expression. I can't say that I'm terribly impressed by EJ Anthony. It sounds like he's come in with a brief and he's determined to fulfill it.
Are you worried about the BLS commissioner affecting the statistics? Because we were talking about this before, and we're saying it was impossible.
Yeah, they don't usually have any effect on it because their only role is to sign off on a press release. Now, so the question becomes, as the BLS director, does he start expanding his powers into areas that haven't previously been the province of the BLS director? You talked a couple of weeks ago about how the real danger in terms of statistical manipulation is going to come from changing the definitions of things. It's not going to come from EJ Anthony's clumsy hack work. It's going to come from changing definitions.
Yes.
Now, Betsy Stevenson, former Obama NEC advisor, she was immediately able to see what those definitional changes would involve. I doubt that EJ Anthony would be able to, but he would definitely know people, I imagine, who would be able to help him with that. Yeah. So, yes, I am a bit worried about that.
Yeah, I'm getting nervous too, I have to say.
Yes.
And we do keep hearing about the BLS Commissioner is bound by many agency rules and policy directives from the Office of Budget and Management designed to protect the integrity and trustworthiness of economic metrics. But, rules can be changed.
Yes.
They're not laws, they're rules.
Especially considering who the head of the Office of Management and Budget is.
Russell Vought.
There is nobody less respectful of rules and norms than him.
He would leave a trail of smoke like the Roadrunner. He'd be moving so fast to change those rules.
Yep.
He would break the land speed record. So, I am nervous.
Yep.
Especially given, unlike when we first talked about this 2 or 3 weeks ago, it now seems like inflation is about to be a massive issue.
It does.
Like we've been talking about, is inflation going to come, is it not? We're not sure. But last week, the latest producer price index figures came out, and they weren't 0.1% or 0.2% for the month. They were 0.9% for the month. It was projected to go up 0.2%
Yes.
for the month and went up 0.9%. Now, to be clear, that's not the final price of goods. That's the wholesale price of goods. Producers, Keith, do swallow some of those prices rather than passing them on to consumers. Maybe it'll take a few months to filter through. The last time we saw numbers like that, 0.9% in a month, was at the beginning of 2021.
Yeah.
It took over a year for high inflation to kick in. So it won't be tomorrow necessarily.
No.
But the annual figures on the producer price index were 3.3%, 3.7% for core inflation for producers. That's minus food and energy. And if you look at the products driving the price increases, food went up 1.4%. Consumer electronics went up 3%. The kinds of stuff that's affected by tariffs, Dave.
Yeah.
Prices of fresh and dry vegetables. Tell you, guess how much they went up in a month?
2%.
39%.
Whoa!
Yeah. That's the highest increase for veggies since March 2022, the highest increase for anything ever in the summer months.
Not that Trump is going to be aware of this.
Yeah, they might pass them by. Well, look, hey, French fries, they're a veggie. So my question then is what happens when the next...
When he demands the change back from JD Vance after sending him to McDonald's and it's only 50 cents.
So what happens when the next consumer inflation figures are gathered and they go up a heap? What happens then? Remember, the BLS has already been forced to reduce the number of samples it takes with its inflation data because of budget and staffing cuts under the Trump administration. So those stats are already under pressure. If EJ Anthony's in charge of those stats, are you going to trust they haven't been monkeyed with? According to YouGov, Trump now is just as unpopular on inflation as Biden was in the middle of the inflation surge in 2022. And it hasn't even begun yet, Dave. For those who can't see it, Trump's net approval on handling inflation, it started at -5. It's now -27%, which is... And Biden's never got lower than about -33. And during the inflation surge, it was actually higher. It was actually better than -27. So imagine how much pressure Trump is going to be placing Anthony under when those stats come out. And by the way, if he does monkey with the stats, he might not be able to. But people have tried this before, not in America, in Argentina. And what happened was they undervalued inflation for a few years. It led to an international community disbelieving their government data, driving up the country's borrowing costs and creating a debt crisis.
That's what happens. And ultimately, domestically, it doesn't help you that much because people are paying the prices.
That's true.
They're not paying a lot of attention to the official statistics, but they are paying the prices.
Do you have more thoughts on EJ Anthony or inflation before I talk energy inflation?
No.
Because that's the key bit. In case you're wondering why core inflation was so high, it's because energy costs are becoming a problem. Electricity prices have jumped more than twice as fast as the overall cost of living in the last year. According to Energy Information Administration data, natural gas prices in particular have increased 56% between January and May this year.
Wow.
Electricity, less so. Electricity was up by 6% for the year, so which means overall energy prices are 10% for the year because there's less gas and electricity. Now, Trump's blaming wind and solar, of course, as he always does. Any state that has built and relied on windmills and solar for power are seeing record-breaking increases in electricity and energy costs, the scam of the century. And US Energy Secretary Chris Wright's backing him up, of course. The momentum of the Obama-Biden policies, for sure. That destruction is going to continue in the coming years. That momentum is pushing prices up right now. And who's going to get blamed for it? We're going to get blamed because we're in office. I don't see how having 17% of electricity taken care of by wind and solar pushes the prices of the rest of the energy up, especially natural gas. And you can see how much this is bothering Trump as well with the way he's trying to gaslight people about, well, gas.
We've got some gas stations where just 2 weeks ago it was $1.98, $1.99. We've got the gas down below. Then we have this little situation which will drive it up a little bit, but very little. And it's going to come down again. It's going to give people a lot of extra money.
Yeah. $1.98 a gallon, hey? Lockie, can you bring up the price of petrol this year? Look at that. Now, for those who can't see, $1.98 is barely on this chart. It's right down the bottom there. And the line has been the entire year, if you look on the right there, it's been basically above $3 a gallon. The day that Trump said that, the lowest price in the country was $2.71 a gallon. So he's just flat line. Surprise, surprise. The question you might ask, though, if you look at that graph, it's so steady at it's just over $3 a gallon. Why is it so steady? All the other times it's going up and down, but under Trump it's just steady as. Why aren't those prices going down? Remember, he's Mr. Drill Baby Drill.
Yes.
And the reason is because he doesn't understand how oil prices work. He keeps throwing land at the oil industry.
Yes.
Going, hey, you can drill here, you can drill here, you can drill, just drill, go drill, baby, drill, in the hope it's going to reduce oil prices. Because you go, yeah, I'm going to increase supply, so that way you'll reduce prices. But they're not going to drill on that land.
No.
Because they're not going to make money out of it.
That's right.
Because what they care about, how much they're going to make on the oil price.
Yes.
And the oil prices aren't determined by what Trump gives them. They're determined by world markets.
That's right.
And so you have a situation where they need prices to be high enough to make a profit. And the lower the price is, the less likely it's worth their while to exploit more land.
That's
so
right.
He can throw as much land as he likes. It makes no difference. In the meantime, their costs are increasing because guess what they use a lot of, Dave? Steel. An awful lot of steel.
That's right. You mentioned that earlier.
And that's currently facing 50% tariffs. So Trump has actually increased their costs while reducing their profits through the reduction in the oil price. And that's why there's 50 fewer oil and gas rigs operating now than last year. In fact, the Energy Information Agency's short-term energy outlook predicts that domestic crude production is going to decline next year for the first time since 2021. And Trump clearly doesn't understand that because he's trying to solve the problem by yelling at everyone. You think I'm joking? This was last month. Truth Social. All caps. Everyone! Keep oil prices down. I'm watching. You're playing right into the hands of the enemy. Don't do it. Secondly, he doesn't seem to understand which government department does what, because this was also last month. To the Department of Energy, drill, baby, drill, and I mean now. The reason Dave's laughing is because the Department of Energy isn't in charge of leasing drilling land.
No.
That's the Bureau of Land Management.
Yes.
The only thing more embarrassing than this is the way the Energy Secretary patronized Trump by pretending he was right.
Really?
Secretary Chris Wright, Energy Secretary, we're on it in response to Trump. Thanks to President Trump's leadership, America's energy security is stronger than ever before. Anyway, my point is this is a huge problem for Trump. He's basically helpless.
Yep.
And even EJ Anthony ain't going to save him with energy and petrol prices. So that is your update on inflation and the BLS. Anything you want to add to that?
Nope.
Then Dave, take it away on part 2. We'll see how much we've got left over after you're finished.
Okay, so as we said, the European powers were rushing to the White House in order to give Zelensky backup.
Yes.
Now, there's been, once again, an inordinate focus on the physical symbolism of this. Zelensky wearing a suit that is designed to look like his black military fatigues. I've seen way too many stories about that.
Yes.
And also the fact that, you know, we've got the now familiar sight of these European and NATO leaders just really buttering Trump up.
Did they ever?
Including Zelensky himself. Zelensky came very, very close last time he was in the Oval Office to just telling Trump that he was full of shit.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Nothing like that this time.
Yeah.
He is really committed to the idea that Trump is very committed to helping us and is committed to peace.
He said thank you 9 times in the first minute.
9 times. He made jokes with that idiot journalist, Brian Glenn, who was the one who accused him of disrespecting the office by not wearing a suit. He was making jokes about, now I'm wearing a suit and so are you. So,
Can you just run overlay while we're talking about this, Lockie, of Trump when he met Zelensky, just how delighted he was by Zelensky's suit. We don't need to hear him. Just you can see it. The body language, Dave.
Yes.
Just how much he was loving it. Anyway, but yeah, so the suit stuff. I'll tell you my favourite bit of sucking up.
Yeah.
Sorry, do you have a favourite bit of sucking up?
No, you go.
My favourite bit of sucking up was, did you see the letter that Melania Trump wrote to Putin?
No.
Oh, my God. Okay, I'm going to read this to you.
I've somehow missed this.
If you don't know about this, I'm going to read you the letter and then I'll tell you my favourite part.
Okay.
Because I just want, forget the podcast. I just want to share this with you personally.
Okay.
Okay, but everyone will love this.
Yes.
Okay, so Melania wrote a letter to Putin saying the following. Dear President Putin, every child shares the same quiet dreams in their heart, whether born randomly into a nation's rustic countryside or a magnificent city centre. They dream of love, possibility and safety from danger. As parents, it's our duty to nurture the next generation's hope. As leaders, the responsibility to sustain our children extends beyond the comfort of a few. Undeniably, we must strive to paint a dignity-filled world for all, so that every soul may wake to peace, and so that the future itself is perfectly guarded. A simple yet profound concept, Mr. Putin, as I'm sure you agree, is that each generation's descendants begin their lives with a purity, an innocence which stands above geography, government, and ideology. Yet in today's world, some children are forced to carry a quiet laughter, untouched by the darkness around them, a silent defiance against the forces that can potentially claim their future. Mr. Putin, you can single-handedly restore their melodic laughter. In protecting the innocence of these children, you'll do more than serve Russia alone. You serve humanity itself. Such a bold idea transcends all human division, and you, Mr. Putin, are fit to implement this vision with a stroke of the pen today. It is time. Now, I know I didn't do the accent, but I want to do the energy.
Yes. That's definitely the energy.
So Trump gave that letter to Putin. I'm sure Putin was very impressed by it all.
So what was your favourite part of that letter?
I know, that's not the letter. My favourite part of Zelensky's sucking up.
Yes.
Is that you'd think he'd probably try and stay away from that letter entirely.
You would think.
But no, he embraced the letter and he responded to Trump by giving him a letter from his wife to Melania. Let's have a look at that.
Using this opportunity, many thanks to your wife, First Lady of the United States. She sent a letter to Putin about our children, adopted children, and my wife, First Lady of Ukraine. She gave the letter. It's not to you, to your wife.
Oh, I want
it. That is first-rate sucking up right there.
That is amazing. Did that also contain a line about children being randomly born? Or was it into a rustic hovel or whatever, or into a magnificent city centre? Look, I don't know which AI platform she was using to write that one. But
it must be burnt to the ground.
Oh no, I want to use that one now. I want to road test it.
Honestly, like Zelensky, whoever his PR consultant is, he deserves a raise. That was a remarkable effort.
That was.
Anyway, so Dave, go on.
Okay.
So sucking up was happening.
So a lot of sucking up was happening.
Yes.
And so what was the result of this sucking up? Well, this was when the US really started to talk about security guarantees that were not NATO, but would in some way resemble Article 5 of NATO guarantees. So Article 5, just to be clear, this is the article that says an attack on one NATO member is an attack on all NATO members.
Yep.
Okay, it is about the strongest alliance mechanism you can imagine. It's actually stronger than the mechanism that is in the ANZUS Treaty between Australia, New Zealand and the US. It's about as ironclad as it gets, only ever been invoked once, and that was after 9/11. So the US is talking about an Article 5 guarantee that is not an Article 5 guarantee. At the same time, though, they're making it very clear that US troops would not be involved.
Yeah, look, I've got a couple of clips on that to back that up. Because on the day of the meeting with Europe, Trump was actually quite vague during the press conference when he was asked about that.
Your team has talked about security guarantees. Could that involve U.S. troops? Would you rule that out in the future?
We'll let you know that maybe later today. We're meeting with 7 great leaders of great countries also, and we'll be talking about that. They'll all be involved, but there'll be a lot of help when it comes to security. There's going to be a lot of help. It's going to be good. They are first line of defense because they're there. They're Europe. But we're going to help them out also. We'll be involved. Yeah.
That I think was the only way Trump could have actually answered that question. Yeah. He certainly would never have said, like, US troops will be involved. At the same time, though, he wasn't going to say, no, definitely not.
Well, he was a lot less vague on Fox News later on.
Yes.
What kind of assurances do you feel like you have that going forward and, past this Trump administration, it won't be American boots on the ground defending that border?
Well, you have my assurance, and I'm president.
Now on Truth Social, I think Trump was deliberately vague, but it said a lot, I think. Guarantees will be provided by the various European countries with a coordination with the United States of America.
Yeah.
So
So this is not going to be anything like an Article 5 guarantee, but it's kind of all of a moot point because Russia made it very clear on Wednesday that it was not agreeing to any kind of security guarantee of this nature, despite, as we said earlier, the fact that Steve Witkoff delusionally believed that Russia had agreed to this in some way.
The Foreign Ministry spokesperson said, we reiterate the position that we have voiced on multiple occasions that we categorically reject any scenarios envisaging the arrival of a military contingent in Ukraine involving NATO states. And Lavrov, as you said before, said we cannot agree with the fact that now it is proposed to resolve questions of security, collective security, without the Russian Federation. This will not work. I'm sure that in the West, and above all in the United States, they understand perfectly well that seriously discussing security issues without the Russian Federation is a utopia. It's a road to nowhere.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. So what we get out of all of this, out of both these summits, Russia and Ukraine are still 1,000,000 miles away.
Yep.
Another thing that Steve Witkoff seemed to think that Russia had agreed to was a meeting with Zelensky.
Ah, yes, that's right.
Yeah. Now, Zelensky wants a meeting with Putin.
He's very happy to have a meeting.
He definitely wants a meeting with Putin. But whereas Putin is very happy to fly at relatively short notice to Anchorage to go and establish himself on the diplomatic stage with Trump, is he going to agree to that? Oh, God, no. Their line on that has always been there needs to be a lot of preparation with the underlings before any such meeting takes place. And realistically, it's not likely that a meeting is going to take place until Zelensky, backed by Trump, expresses a willingness to basically surrender to Russia's terms. That is how I interpret that.
Yeah, no, I think I'm not too far off, to be honest.
Can I just use that opportunity to talk a little bit about Trump's style of diplomacy here?
Sure, go for it.
Okay, so one of the things that is unusual about the way that Trump does diplomacy is that he doesn't do the traditional thing of having months and months of preparation by lesser officials before you have the major summit, right? He wants to have them quickly because he believes that his personal relationship with these other leaders is very important. And he also believes that he is such a good deal maker that he can very, very quickly work out whether a deal can be made or not. I want to acknowledge that I think probably the strongest part of Trump's diplomacy is the fact that he is not bound by orthodoxy or ideology.
Yep.
He actually does have a level of flexibility which can be pretty useful, not just to himself, but to other people. in some circumstances. I said in his first term that what I most liked about his foreign policy was you knew he was not going to go to war over credibility issues, as previous presidents had. He wasn't going to declare a red line and then when the red line got crossed, go to war, go to a very destructive war. That's just not how he operates. That flexibility, you can see circumstances under which that's a good thing. Now, I'm not saying that he has solved the Armenia-Azerbaijan conflict, but that's an example of, that is probably the best thing that Trump has accomplished so far, even though it's not an actual accomplishment yet, because we've got no idea if this corridor is ever going to be built. I also don't know if it's a good thing overall geopolitically, sort of throwing an American flag in Russia and Iran's face in this way. But from the point of view of Armenia and Azerbaijan, that was at that time, that was something that they saw as a win-win situation. That's the kind of thing that the Trump approach can potentially facilitate. Okay, so that flexibility, that lack of, refusing to be bound by previous orthodoxy in situations that require creative solutions, and in a world order which is changing and where certain old certainties are melting away, not least because of Trump himself, there can be benefits to that. People have also talked about Trump's convening power, right? The fact that he is able to just get all of these people to meetings very, very quickly without them insisting on months of preparation. Now, that is probably also quite useful under some circumstances, though admittedly probably any US president would have been able to exercise that power if they had chosen to, but Trump's certainly somebody who chooses to exercise it. Okay, so those are probably two of the most positive aspects of Trump's diplomacy, but it is still not working and it is still not achieving much most of the time.
Can I read you on that note?
Yes.
Something that this is a series of tweets from Peter Major. How do you? Mayer. He's for those who don't remember him, he's a Republican, kind of an old school Republican.
Yeah, Michigan guy.
Yeah, he's like the son of some rich supermarket magnate in Michigan, and he was a House rep for a while there. He lost his seat when the Democrats gerrymandered.
Oh, sorry, that is Meyer. Sorry.
Meyer,
yeah.
Democrats gerrymandered his seat in Michigan, and so he got out. He was one of the strongest resistors to Trump in his first term. He's a big fan of Ukraine, and he posted, well, I suppose you almost call it a tribute to Trump this week, a clear-eyed tribute.
Yeah.
And I want to read to you and see what your reaction is to this.
Yep.
Without the last 6 months, you don't get to today. And if you believe, as I do, that Ukraine's defence is moral and just, you couldn't have asked for a better outcome to build momentum for peace. Without Trump threatening to step back, you don't get NATO allies stepping up to take more ownership of European security and committing to blow past 2% and raise defence spending to 5% of GDP, the last thing Putin wanted. Without Trump reaching out to Putin and expressing an openness to strike a deal, there would be no possibility of the face-saving framing that is needed to see a lasting peace. The Alaska summit raised the stakes for Trump to get a deal done, and for Putin as well. Even the awful February meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in the Oval Office served an important role in recalibrating Ukrainian domestic expectations, which will be essential to gaining approval of the inevitable concessions any peace treaty Putin would sign will include. The dynamic Trump inherited was unsustainable and needed a dramatic reset. Trump did that, and in so doing has brought real possibility that this awful war that Russia started might finally be brought to an end. What are your thoughts about that?
I don't entirely agree with Meyer about that. And I mean, thing is, I don't see it getting any closer to peace. I don't see it getting any closer to a ceasefire as a result. I can see what Meyer's saying about the need for a reset, and Trump is definitely doing things that moved people along in certain ways. But you could definitely counteract that the other way of doing it would have just been to ramp up pressure on Russia.
Sanctions.
Yeah. And in fact, the NATO members were already moving because of Trump's first term in that direction. So I don't really agree with Meyer there, although his heart's in the right place. What I would say actually about why this is not working in most instances, and especially in Ukraine, is I've mentioned before Jeffrey Blaney's book, The Causes of War.
Yeah.
Okay, so the thesis of Causes of War, he says, if each side could know in advance what the outcome of the war would be, no one would ever go to war. They would just negotiate to get the outcome that would come about as a result of war, because war is so costly and terrible. So why do wars happen? Because neither side can really – it happens when one or both sides can't estimate their strength or the other side's strength properly. So it's when they've got different perceptions of relative strength. That's when they're going to go to war. Now, I think that's quite a compelling argument. There's more to war than that, and I think actually Ukraine's a good example of it's not just about the strategic calculations. Like there's real sacred values at stake there in terms of Ukrainian land, but there is still something to it. And I think from that sort of Blainian perspective, what Trump is doing by continuing to just oscillate between a position that gives Putin hope and a position that gives Zelensky hope is he is constantly messing with everybody's calculations about the relative strengths of the two sides.
Yes.
He is constantly making the outcome of the war less and less certain.
Yes.
Which means they keep fighting. If both sides had a very clear idea of what the final outcome of the war was likely to be based on their relative strengths, and remember that US backing of Ukraine and European backing of Ukraine are really significant variables here. If that was just made very clear, then I think that would be more likely to bring the fighting to an end.
It's very clever.
And here I would say that Biden wasn't entirely blameless either. I think there was a lot of uncertainty about how committed Biden actually was. Now, look, I've got to say, the leaders who are negotiating this are in a very difficult position. And I won't claim that I could do a better job than them. But this very chaotic approach, which I know what Trump's thinking, is thinking it gets people off guard. And so it shifts people from these hardline bargaining positions, right? If they don't really know what's going on, they're forced to respond. The problem is this is just not working with Russia and Ukraine, because those positions are for Ukraine. It's based in its national survival, right? It's based in the existential threat. And as I've said before, for Putin, this is absolutely central to his worldview. And also he's completely rearranged the Russian economy and society around fighting this war. He's not going to come away with anything less than victory. This negotiating tactic, which would work well in real estate negotiations, and, coming back to worldviews of things, this is how Trump sees everything, right? That ultimately all land is for sale, that anything can be exchanged. That is just not happening here. And as I say, by going from giving Putin a huge reason to think one week that Trump is seeing things his way and is going to allow him to win the war, going straight from that to seeming to back Zelensky and giving Zelensky hope and giving Europe hope that American support will continue. He was even talking today about how Ukraine should be allowed to launch long-range attacks into Russian territory, bashing Biden for not allowing that to happen.
Okay. I'm up to that.
These sort of wild oscillations, they're not actually progressing peace talks in the way that Maya seems to be thinking. They are creating more and more uncertainty, and more uncertainty means more and more reason to fight.
I think that's a really good observation. Let me just take a second to just tell you what I think has been achieved on the week as a whole.
Yep.
When we put everything together.
Yep.
Okay, because there's a couple of things we haven't mentioned as well. Firstly, as far as the security guarantees go, I did see some muddling around suggesting that what America might mean by this, and I think this might have come out of the Europe meeting.
Yep.
That while there wouldn't be boots on the ground, they would provide intelligence and logistics support.
Yep.
Which is very valuable for America. And US air power potentially.
Right.
which the European countries lack.
Yes.
Compared to America, at least.
Yep.
So now that sorts out the security guarantees and Ukraine would be happy with that.
Yeah.
So that sorts out the security guarantees on the Ukraine side, the Europe side, and the American side.
Yep.
Russia ain't going to agree to that.
No.
And nothing that is going to be sufficient for Ukraine, Russia is going to agree to. That's the problem.
Yeah.
So there is, in the end of the day, there is no progress towards peace there.
No.
Until they get something that Russia could potentially agree to.
Yeah.
Unless I'm wrong about that, but that's my assessment.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the land swap goes, they might have made a step. Apparently, in the Europe meeting, they were talking about they were discussing that Ukraine could give up Donetsk without letting Russia annex it, putting it under an autonomous administration modelled off the Palestinian Authority.
Yes.
Yeah. Like so that potentially could be something that both Russia and Ukraine could accept. Potentially. Yeah. We don't know.
Yeah.
So that might be a step forward in that area, the
Yes.
land swap area. Maybe not. Then there is, no one's even mentioned the weapon sales.
No.
They agreed to $100 billion in weapon sales.
Yeah.
America, Trump said yes to selling them to Europe, which would then give them to Ukraine. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but that's significant.
Elbridge Colby is not going to be happy about that.
Yes. They flat out signed off on that one.
Yeah.
So that's actually probably the most significant part of the week.
Probably is.
Like nothing else is going to last.
Yes.
That's going to last.
Yeah.
But then you've got the peace ceasefire thing. That disappeared in the second half of the week.
It
They
did.
didn't mention it at all.
No.
That's entirely unresolved.
Yes.
So where are we going there? I got
Yeah.
no idea. And then the other thing is who is the onus on to move next? Is it Putin or is it Zelensky? Once again, we thought Trump had gone on Putin's side. He then was all, I love you, Zelensky, in his meeting with Europe. Seemed like he'd flipped again.
Yeah.
But had he flipped again? This is the day after the meeting.
Russia is a powerful military nation, whether people like it or not. It's a powerful nation. It's a much bigger nation. It's not a war that should have been started. You don't do that. You don't take on a nation that's 10 times your size. And
he's back to saying Ukraine took on Russia. So nothing's changed there either. So my assessment of this week is that for all of the toing and froing and flowers and applause and all the rest of it, they've made progress potentially on the land swap.
Yes.
Or the land deal. And they have, other than that, I don't see any progress.
Nope.
You agree?
I agree.
Okay. Got anything else to say about this
Just
week?
about a couple of other things that Trump has been saying.
Oh, we haven't mentioned the Nobel Prize.
Yes, that's what I want to talk about.
Go for it.
Trump is desperate to win the Nobel Peace Prize.
This is Ukraine's best hope.
Yes.
So forget everything else we talked about. This is actually the thing that might get Ukraine their country back.
Yes. So this is one of the reasons why I question whether Trump is a genuine populist, because he craves elite approval and the trappings of elite approval. And the Nobel Peace Prize is just one of the best examples of this. And he's clearly torn up over the fact that 1 year into his first term, Obama was given the Nobel Peace Prize for no reason.
Zero reason.
None.
For being Obama.
Yeah, exactly. For being Obama. And nobody's giving Trump the Nobel Peace Prize for being Trump. Now, it's one thing to say, oh, yeah, look, Trump's clearly angling for a Nobel Peace Prize. And he wasn't the first president to do that. Like Bill Clinton spent basically his entire last year, well, actually, basically all of his post-impeachment presidency looking for the Nobel Peace Prize. But as far as I'm aware, Bill Clinton didn't cold call any of the obscure Norwegian politicians who are members of the Nobel Committee.
For those who don't know what Dave's talking about, the Norwegian Business Daily, can you pronounce this, Dave?
No, I'm not going to try to pronounce
Dagens Næringsliv reported.
Sorry to all of our Norwegian peppers.
Reported the Trump cold called the Norwegian finance minister for some reason, Jens Stoltenberg, to talk about the Nobel Prize.
Yes, sorry, I shouldn't refer to Jens Stoltenberg as an obscure politician. He's actually a very well-known politician.
For what's worse, Stoltenberg said to Reuters that he discussed tariffs and economic cooperation with Trump. But, quote, I will not go into further detail about the content of our conversation.
No. Yeah, so it's 5 Norwegian ministers, some of whom are retired, who decide the Nobel Peace Prize.
Is Stoltenberg one of them?
I'm not sure.
Because it just seems quite random.
But, yeah, let's look at Trump's claimed credentials.
Yes, I know. I got a clip ready for this.
Winning the Nobel Peace Prize. It's the 6 or 7 conflicts he has ended.
Okay, well, we'll play 6 first, and then we'll play 7 the day after. This was 6?
Yeah.
In the 6 wars that I've settled, I haven't had a ceasefire. We just got into negotiations, and one of the wars was, as you know, in the Congo was 31 years long. Another one that we settled last week with 2 great countries was 35 years going on, and we had no ceasefire. So,
and then the next day,
I've solved 7 wars. We ended 7 wars. I thought this would be one of the easier ones, and this has turned out to be the toughest one. India, Pakistan. I mean, these were big ones, and also all big ones, and some going for 31, 32 years, one for 35 years. The Congo, think of that, the Congo and Rwanda for 35 years. I got that one done. I got them all done, but this one is the one that is the most difficult, and I thought it would be an easy one. So,
tell us about the 7 wars, Dave.
Okay. So he's mentioned Congo, India, Pakistan. There was Thailand and Cambodia.
Yep.
There was Armenia and Azerbaijan, which we have talked about at length.
Is he counting? Is he counting Israel and Palestine?
He's counting Israel and Palestine. Well, he appears to be. And the Israel-Iran ceasefire. Yeah. Now, the first thing he says is that, oh, no, I didn't go to ceasefires. These were all just peace agreements that ended these wars. That is completely false. Nearly every one of these things that he was talking about is a ceasefire. Furthermore, in conflicts where there have been many, many ceasefires in the past, this is, in most cases, just another ceasefire. And some of these ceasefires have already been broken. There's already been a massacre in the Congo conducted by Rwandan-affiliated forces after this supposed ceasefire.
I see.
That is, these are, and nobody thinks that the India-Pakistan conflict is actually over.
And India don't think Trump did anything.
India don't think that Trump did anything in that conflict.
Yes.
Now, I mean, there are a few, like as we've talked about, Armenia, Azerbaijan, he has potentially proposed something that could lead to a future peace agreement. But for reasons that we talked about last week, they're really not there yet. And it's not clear they ever will be. Thailand and Cambodia, like he did apparently bring some pressure to bear through trade negotiations on that.
Okay.
But again, there's a lot of controversy over whether that ceasefire is actually being respected by both sides and, you know, how important that actually was. It's Israel-Gaza, clearly he has not ended that war.
No, he has not.
The Iran-Israel war. I mean, he didn't exactly negotiate peace in that one.
No.
He joined in on he joined in on Israel's side.
He used his biggest bomb.
Yes. He actually used American military force in that conflict. And I think it's safe to say we haven't heard the last of that conflict.
Probably not.
Okay. So in many cases, we're talking about ceasefires that have either already been broken or aren't likely to last very long, or, as India says, where Trump didn't actually do anything. Although Pakistan, that seems to know how to play the game, has attributed it all to Trump. Yeah. Now, okay, like as we said, 80% of ceasefires end. And so Trump's not alone in that. It's also been pointed out that a lot of people who got the Nobel Peace Prize got them for ceasefires that were subsequently broken. There have been some pretty notorious examples of people who got Nobel Peace Prizes. Like Henry Kissinger got one.
Yeah.
Jointly with a North Vietnamese leader for, I think that was for the Paris peace talks. That was while Kissinger was conducting a secret bombing campaign in Southeast Asia.
So Trump deserves a peace prize more than Kissinger
Yeah,
did.
yeah. The North Vietnamese leader refused the Nobel Prize. And then Henry Kissinger, in a moment of contrition, tried to give his back, but they don't accept it back.
Oh, right.
Once they give it, that's it. That's irrevocable. If you accept it, then that is irrevocable. Yeah, you're not getting it back. A lot of people weren't pleased about Yasser Arafat getting one, and jointly with Yitzhak Rabin. Of course, Nelson Mandela got one, but it was also jointly given to F.W. de Klerk, which a lot of people were not happy about. But, you can see the politics of it. You need to give it to both sides. Aung San Suu Kyi got one, was widely lauded at the time, and then facilitated what might be described as a genocide against the Rohingya people.
Trump deserves one more than that.
Yeah, sure. Now, just to be very clear on what happened, it wasn't like Aung San Suu Kyi directly directing the genocide. It was her using language that describing Rohingyas as Bengalis, which suggested that they did not belong in Myanmar, which was the same language that people who were carrying out what's alleged to have been a genocide were using. So at the very least, she was not helping.
Gotcha. No, that's good. It's good to be specific on that.
Yeah, she wasn't helping with that conflict. So
she's a pepper. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's an argument that the Nobel Peace Prize doesn't mean that much anyway. And look, if somehow the deal was Trump gets the next Nobel Peace Prize and then the conflict in Ukraine comes to an end, permanent ceasefire, who wouldn't take that?
Well,
I would take that.
Absolutely. This is Hillary Clinton's thing. She said she'd personally nominate him if he ends the Ukraine war.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Unfortunately, the 5 semi-retired Norwegian politicians do not have that power. Yeah.
Sadly.
Yeah. You know who hasn't nominated Trump for a Nobel Prize? Putin.
Oh my God!
Like even though Putin will,
that must hurt.
Even though Putin will tell Trump what he wants to hear, there are limits to the degree that Putin will suck up.
I can't imagine that Putin wants to bathe as much as he would need to bathe if he strolled into the Nobel Peace Prize Center.
Yes,
to lodge his nomination.
Anyway, let me be clear here. PEP is not nominating anybody for the Nobel Peace Prize.
No.
All I'm saying is, if that was the deal, I would take it.
Give us a cross promotion, Trump. I'm open for negotiation. I speak the language of deals. It's good stuff, Dave. Anything else on the Ukraine topic?
No, but this isn't the last time that we're going to talk about this.
Okay, I'm going to start.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you're going to last to the end of it.
I've got 8 minutes.
You got 8 minutes? Okay, well, you'll be here for a little while. I want to start talking about the DC thing.
Okay, yes.
Because, and we might end up going 5 minutes over 3 hours. The 3:00 was cute for a while, but I'm trying to sneak in extra time when I can. Okay, anyway.
You know what the ABC is going to do? They're going to take our batteries away.
They're
going to give us the old ones back that had these rigid 3-hour limits.
But Supervisor, I promise, I'm going to be as short as possible. Let's just finish the crime section and then we'll
I love being notified about these things on air.
Yeah. That's better than not being notified at all. Okay, so what is the real situation in DC? Is a good question. Trump's still desperately trying to undermine DC, trying to make it look like it was a hellhole till he moved in. Tweeting out stuff like, DC has one of the highest rates of crime in the world, more than many of the most violent third world countries. It sees homicide rates higher than places notorious for their violence, such as Mexico City, Bogota, Islamabad, Addis Ababa.
I believe that's Bogota.
Bogota, yeah, sorry. We got comments about that too. Bogota, sorry. Almost 10 times higher than Fallujah, Iraq. If DC were a state, it would have the highest homicide rate of any state in America. The violent crime rate in DC is worsened, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The real crime rates are probably 5. The real crime rates are many times worse. The real crime rates are probably 5 to 10 times what has been reported. DC's been under siege from thugs and killers, but now DC's back under federal control where it belongs. The White House is in charge. The military and our great police will liberate the city, scrape away the filth, and make it safe, clean, habitable, and beautiful once more. Okay, we talked about Washington's crime stats last week. They've always been on the high side. They got pretty good around 2012.
Yep.
Then they had a small spike around 2023. I say small relatively to the previous spikes.
Yep.
And they've been falling significantly since, like most of the country. What I would urge people to not do, though, which we didn't say last week, is to compare Washington's crime stats to other cities.
Yes.
And say, oh, those cities are better or worse. Don't do that, even though everyone does do that, because Jeff Asher has convinced me it's bad analysis, and this is why. I didn't realize this. The point Asher makes is that the most important number when comparing cities isn't the number of crimes. It's the population size you choose to divide those crimes by to make your rate, your crime rate. As Jeff notes, different cities use very different definitions of how big their city is.
Yeah.
And he notes that Memphis and St. Louis are often considered the highest crime cities in America. And that's partly because they both only define a very small part of their city as the city for the purposes of calculating crime rates.
Yes.
So they basically just define the inner city where all the crime is.
Yeah.
And there are these huge sweeping suburbs that aren't counted as part of the city where there isn't crime. So whereas New York has a very, very, very large population counted in their crime stats. So they have a low crime rate.
Yeah.
So if we're being fair, this is complicated stuff, which makes this question from Lindell TV quite concerning. For those who don't know, Mike Lindell has his own TV station. Mike Lindell's the MyPillow guy.
Yep.
Yeah, Trump fanboy. He's got journalists who turn up at the White House now. Have a look.
Will the administration release its own crime statistics to counter their misinformation? And will those individuals who are intentionally misrepresenting crime data and fudging the books, like he said, be penalized for endangering the public?
They are under investigation right now.
By the way, that's true. The DOJ is investigating Washington, D.C.'s crime stats. And look, I get people saying if the numbers are being manipulated, they should be investigated. Fine. I didn't like the tone there at all.
No.
I don't like where this is going, Dave. Okay, so that's a situation. But the biggest problem, and we did touch on this, but I want to go into more detail now, is the feds and their control of not just the justice system, but the whole of Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
They control it terribly. Let's start with staffing. One of the biggest problems is the Senate has to confirm D.C. judges, but there are heaps of vacancies because they don't take the time, because they waste time in the Senate. And time is the most valuable thing in the Senate.
Yep.
So they just leave all these vacancies, which creates huge queues. It's like immigration courts. It's huge queues, and it makes the whole system ineffective. The U.S. attorney is the one who decides all the major prosecutions. They also decide the priorities for prosecutions. They're also appointed by the president. The U.S. attorney has been declining more prosecutions than they should because of those vacancies in the justice system.
Yep.
In the case of Eagle Ed Martin Jr., he was too busy trying to wage partisan warfare. He was investigating Chuck Schumer. He was investigating medical journals for being biased instead of prosecuting people in court for DC. That's his actual job. And he was only the most recent in a long line of ineffective US attorneys. So when Trump says a city has stopped investigating and prosecuting crime, I just skipped past that part of the tweet. He said that there. He's half right, but it's his fault. The feds are also interfering with funding all the time, Dave. Republicans in Congress, they passed a bill that blocked DC from spending $1 billion of their own taxpayer money towards a budget that Congress had approved. They also had to find money from police overtime, from school programs, from public works. They had to shut down some public toilets, which is aimed at improving public order, quality of life, cleanliness. They can't raise property taxes revenue. They can't tax outside non-residents who work in the city. They want more police. They can't get that. The police union says that's the main reason that they're struggling to keep the streets safe. They're logging 2 million hours of overtime a year at the moment,
Jesus.
Dave, for 3,000 police officers.
Yes.
So do the maths. That's a lot each.
Yes.
Back in 2012, when DC was right on top of the crime, there were 88 murders as opposed to 187 in 2024.
Yep.
There were 4,000 police. Now there's 3,200. 800 less than there were 15 years ago.
Yep.
The mayor's been trying to raise money to get back to 4,000 since 2022. Feds won't help them. Trump explicitly says they don't need more police.
Yeah.
DC can't invest in most of the neglected public spaces because they're owned and controlled by the National Park Service, who
That's
are
right.
feds. They've got broken fountains in Freedom Plaza for decades
Yes.
because the feds won't fix them and the city can't fix them.
And from what I've heard, the maintenance problems have actually got worse because not Trump. The Trump administration has allowed contracts with maintenance firms to lapse and just not renewed them. Yeah.
That's why there's a homeless problem.
Yeah.
Well, not entirely. It's part of the homeless problem. All the homeless people are on federal land.
Yes.
Where the city can't touch them.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's so easy for them to clean up the homeless problem now because it's the feds now doing it.
All right. The last thing I'll say before I go.
Yeah, say what you want to do about DC, David, and go.
Yeah, I had a friend at Michigan who described when he was in college, he and some friends went on a trip to DC and they went one night to see the Eternal Flame, and the Eternal Flame had been turned off, and that was because people would use it to cook.
Let me guess, the Eternal Flame is on federal land.
The Eternal Flame is absolutely
Do you have anything else to say about DC before you go?
I do not.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Dave, thank you very much.
Stay peppy, everyone.
I'll see you next week. Stay
See you
peppy.
next week.
Lockie, get on over. Welcome to the other side of the white flash. Here's Lockie.
Whoa. And we've got the electric guitar back for the correct sting.
Yeah, baby. By popular request. As I was saying to Dave, I better roll on because there's a lot to cover, and I don't want to take advantage of the supervisor here. We want to be as close to 3 hours as possible. So Congress, they are neglectful, and they just get in the way of, like, they micromanage while being neglectful at the same time. They constantly pass rules to stop DC doing things they want to do, like, say, operating automated traffic cameras or banning drivers from making right-hand turns at red lights. Why is that Congress's business?
Whoa.
It becomes ridiculous. The city legalized recreational marijuana in 2015, but Congress has blocked them from regulating sales. So there's this huge grey market now of marijuana sales just on street corners and shit.
Which is not going to create any more crime.
This is the thing. It's not. These aren't great results. So anyway, that's the problem. Well, that's a problem. That's a big problem. But let's get to what they're doing about these supposed problems. What's happening right now? There are two groups of people here in this whole sort of Trump takeover of DC, and people conflate them all the time. There is the National Guard on one hand, and then there are the federal officers on the other hand. Let's start with the National Guard, because they're doing different things. The National Guard are the guys dressed up in the military gear.
Right.
That's the National Guard, okay? They're the ones hanging around tourist attractions and low crime areas. You got 800 National Guard activated from DC, and you got 1,200 National Guard activated from 6 Republican states: Ohio, Tennessee, South Carolina, Mississippi, Louisiana, and West Virginia. Now, I know we shouldn't compare cities' crime rates, but just for the record, let it be said that each of those 6 states has cities that have comparable crime to Washington, D.C. or worse. More than 50 small cities overall in those states have comparable crime to D.C. or worse. In particular, you got Cleveland, Ohio, Memphis, Tennessee, Jackson, Mississippi, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and Beckley, West Virginia. They all stand out. Okay. The National Guard is specifically ordered to not be arresting people. One of them said, we're here to support law enforcement and just back them up. The Army said they will not arrest, search, or direct law enforcement. Until now, they haven't been even carrying weapons or even had weapons in their vehicles.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Okay, they're just for show.
Just sitting around.
Yeah. Now, we've heard that the National Guard may be carrying weapons soon, but we don't know when. But the point is, they're not meant to be using weapons anyway. They're 100% there for show. The hope is they take care of the safe areas. And when they do, it frees up DC police for the more dangerous areas.
Sure.
So, I mean, that would be useful if we're being fair here.
Right.
And they also hope that the Guard at least deters crime with their obvious presence.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. I'm trying to be reasonable. Yeah. Okay. Then there's the federal officers. These are the officers from the Drug Enforcement Administration, the FBI, Border Patrol, Immigration, the ICE, U.S. Marshals, and Secret Service. They've all got people in D.C.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing actual law enforcement. They're in safe areas and dangerous areas. They're in both high crime and low crime areas. But they're not the police, so their effectiveness is questionable. But they're actually doing police-style work. They're doing patrols in proper areas, right? Some of these guys are the classic dudes with masks. In Ward 7 and Ward 8, which are the most dangerous areas of DC, hopefully to deter crime as well. And even if they're only arresting 200 or 300 criminals, it all helps in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like they're actually arresting people, these guys. Okay, so what are the results? More than 550 arrests have been made over 12 days. Over 300 of those were immigration enforcement.
Okay.
So
great.
I suppose they've got ICE people on the beat.
Yeah.
So really, it's 250 arrests.
Yeah.
About 20 a day. Which, like, bear in mind, DC generally does 68 a day, so it's not like changing the game. But, you know, it's better than nothing. If we're being
So does that mean it's now 80 a day?
So now
If
now
we're
it'd be 88 a day.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
they're adding 20
Yeah.
to the 68. Okay. There are maps out there where forces have been sighted, like this one here. And the area under the river on this diagram you're looking at on the right, that's Wards 7 and 8. That's where a lot of the crime is. Now, it looks like there's no one there on that map. But there must be someone there there because 101 out of 212 non-immigration related arrests made between August 9 and 17 were in Ward 7 and 8. So someone's there.
Whoever saw them got arrested.
Probably.
And couldn't report it for the map.
Probably. Maybe the kind of person who's in Ward 7 and 8 isn't the kind of person who does a lot of reporting to the Washington Post. Well, one thing that's unambiguously happening is cleaning up homeless camps. There's about 5,000 homeless people in DC. 48 encampments were removed by day 11 of the takeover, and they only started on day 8. So they got a wriggle on, lucky. And there are a lot of interviews with people surprised by how quickly that's happening. Why is it happening so quickly? Because, like I said, they're all on federal land. So the feds come along and just chuck them all, get rid of them.
Yeah.
They're chucking all their belongings in the trash, which isn't very nice. Often the homeless are given a few days to leave, and then the feds come in and clean out all their stuff anyway. So it sucks to be the homeless in DC right now. But, if you're asking about changes that have been made, that is a change that's been made. They're clearing out homeless camps. The police union has put out new crime stats. They say robbery's down 46%, assault with a deadly weapon is down 6%, carjacking's down 83%, car theft is down 21%, violent crime is down 22%, property crime is down 6%, and they say all crimes are down 8%. How they're measuring those numbers so quickly, I don't know, because robbery and property crime, it takes weeks for those reports to come in after the incidents. So I suspect those numbers are too low. And look, I'd be wary. I'd definitely be wary either way of those stats. But let's say crime is down 8%. Let's say that violent crime is down 22%. Maybe. Let's say robbery is down 46%. This is what J.D. Vance says.
You look at what's happened in Washington, D.C. in just the past 9 days. We've seen a 35% reduction in violent crime. We've seen over a 50% reduction in robberies.
They still can't help themselves. They're always got to lie, don't they? That was before, by the way, the stats I just read out. So the stats I read out should be more extreme than the ones he read out. But anyway. Let's say things are improving.
Mm-hmm.
What's the cost? Is it worth turning the place into a police state is the question. I know my answer. You might have a different answer. There is a reason that the Third Amendment is... No one even talks about the Third Amendment because it's about quartering troops. It sounds weird, but the idea of the Third Amendment is that you're not allowing troops to stay in people's houses because they wanted to stop the troops becoming the police.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a very unconstitutional vibe. Getting the troops patrolling the streets as the police. I think this concern is best seen by the Subway sandwich guy incident. I'm sure you've seen this. Let's just play the overlay while I talk about it.
Not the hero Washington needed, but the hero Washington deserves.
That's right. It's the only one they have. He was arrested, unsurprisingly, but then he was released because obviously he wasn't a huge security issue. But for reasons I don't understand, the DOJ wanted to make a real example of him. He's an international affairs specialist in the Office of International Affairs for the Criminal Division. So Pam Bondi said, I just learned that this defendant worked at the Department of Justice. No longer. Not only is he fired, he has been charged with a felony. This is an example of the deep state we've been up against for 7 months as we work to refocus DOJ. You will not work in this administration while disrespecting our government and law enforcement. New U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro was super lame. I love this clip.
And then he took a Subway sandwich about this big and took it and threw it at the officer. He thought it was funny. Well, he doesn't think it's funny today because we charged him with a felony, assault on a police officer. And we're going to back the police to the hilt. So there, stick your Subway sandwich somewhere else.
Oh.
How funny is that tough guy pose at the end? She's so proud of herself.
I'm surprised she held back from using the pun, now he's toast.
She clearly didn't think of it. Otherwise, she definitely would have used it.
There you go, Pyrrha. That's one for you.
She's a pepper. She'll take notes. Note, by the way, one more lame assault charge. How many lame assault charges are the DOJ laying during this administration? They just assault people for brushing against them. They assault people for missing them or for throwing a sandwich at them. And then they put out these kinds of ridiculous propaganda tweets. If you touch any law enforcement officer, we'll come after you. Never mind the fact they pardoned all the January 6 guys who attacked police. Bondi herself has hired a guy, Jared Wise, who called for the police on January 6 to be killed. There's footage of this, of him yelling at a camera to kill them all.
Jeez.
And he's now working for the Trump administration. The reason I brought this up is because when they decided to charge a sandwich guy, he said he'd turn himself back in. Of course he would. Where's he going to go? There's police everywhere. But no, rather than let him turn himself in, I mean, he's not dangerous. They sent the
not until he gets back from a Subway.
Yeah, that's right. By the way, there's so many puns out there about this, but my favourite by a mile is assault with a deli weapon. How good is that? Anyway.
I haven't seen puns, but I like that.
Yeah. But rather than let him turn himself in, they sent the riot squad to his house to pick him up and record this propaganda video.
Coming down.
They made out like they were arresting Osama bin Laden.
A little bit of overkill.
Just a little bit. I can't believe they put that video out. Not only does it make them look incredibly lame and like a bunch of pussies, but it's like saying our Starship Troopers. It is so over the top. And so, yeah, so this is the kind of thing that worries me when I see that kind of thing. And there have been attempts to push the law as well. At one point in time, Bondi tried to appoint a new chief of police. Totally not have the power to do that, by the way. A judge talked her down. Andy Ogles is trying to remove the 30-day limit for the deployment in Congress. Trump suggested he might defy it entirely with a national emergency declaration, which he can't do. Right-wing influencers are creaming themselves with all the kicking ass they'd like to see. This is Benny Johnson.
I believe entire neighborhoods probably need to be emptied, need to be bulldozed. I believe that there are places that are so crime-ridden and so infested that you just need to, you're just going to have to crack down.
So far, the overreach hasn't really happened, but this is early days, Lockie. Trump's basically promised he's going to employ the same tactics in other cities where it would almost certainly be illegal, like these.
We have other cities also that are bad, very bad. You look at Chicago, how bad it is. You look at Los Angeles, how bad it is. We have other cities that are very bad. New York has a problem. And then you have, of course, Baltimore and Oakland. We don't even mention that anymore. They're so far gone. We're not going to let it happen. We're not going to lose our cities over this. And this will go further.
Now, every city you mentioned there, by the way, is in a blue state, even though cities in red states tend to have the higher crime rates. New York is particularly known as having a low crime rate. James Comer explicitly suggested they should focus on the military being the police, just like they do overseas, apparently.
We're going to support this. We're going to support doing this in other cities if it works out in Washington, D.C. And again, it's unfortunate, but we spend a lot on our military. Our military has been in many countries around the world for the past 2 decades, walking the streets, trying to reduce crime in other countries. We need to focus on the big cities in America now, and that's what the president's doing.
Lockie, the military never policed Baghdad. That's just not true. They're not trained to do this. And the fact he specifically wants the military to police Americans is scary. Look, I got more to say, but I don't want to push I will say one thing. Sorry, supervisor, this is important. I want to advise you all to ignore any statistics about restaurant bookings. That might sound like a random thing to say, but there's a lot of stats last week about how many bookings have dropped since this time last year. And Trump said this.
But people that haven't gone out to dinner in Washington, D.C. in 2 years are going out to dinner. And the restaurants the last 2 days were busier than they've been in a long time.
I don't know if he just made that up. He may well have. But a lot of the media dunked on him for that. But the thing is, when he said that, restaurant bookings were actually turning around rapidly to be much greater this time than last year. They went from being much worse than last year to much better than last year. And so Trump's online supporters then did lots of, Trump was right after all, like they always do. Put on the hat. Yeah. It's all bullshit. DC has a summer restaurant week every year where restaurants offer promotional deals. Okay? It's a thing in DC. This year, it took place this week. Last year, it took place last week.
Great.
So all those stats about how many restaurant bookings have dropped since last year, last week, they were comparing a normal week this year to restaurant week last year when there were much higher bookings. And now, when they say, the bookings are going up this week, they're comparing a normal week last year to restaurant week this year. Both sides are comparing apples and oranges. Yeah. Ignore them. It's all bullshit. And we have gone about 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I got no idea how far we are over time, but I don't think it's that much. It's enough. I think the supervisor will be okay. But let's leave it there. Let's not push our luck, Lockie. Yep. So thank you very much for your time.
No, thank you very much for yours, Chaz.
Thank you all. Until next week, stay peppy.